All right, welcome to another edition of Old School. On my right, fantastic Bobby Fulton.
Hey.
On my left, sheep herder Luke Williams. And this could be a little different than what we've done before, where it's usually a one-on-one. We talk about a whole bunch of different things. This time we brought some old school rivals. We're going to get into...
I'm going to get closer to you because he's a little close to you. And if you get any closer, we're liable to break out back into the 80s, you understand?
All right, and he's
there's some unfinished business. He's dressed.
He came ready.
He's in his fatigues.
I'm always ready to kick ass, mate. And I think I've kicked the fiddle last with these guys before. Oh, I might have gone overboard at the start of the interview. But anyhow, it's great to be here, Steve, and to you, Bobby. It's good to see you again,
good to
mate.
see you too.
After all those years.
A long time.
Bobby, I haven't seen you since 1996.
My goodness.
You ran a show in North Carolina.
Yes, sir.
And I was like a young guy, and I teamed with you.
I got you.
Yeah.
I remember
You don't remember.
I remember
You
it was
just-
in Kinston, North Carolina.
Oh,
now
sure,
listen,
you do
Steve,
remember,
here's the
yeah.
deal.
I
Listen,
must remember.
Let me just tell you this, Luke. Here's the deal.
It all comes
I had a poster made up, and then we were at a fair. And you know, a lot of times the fair people don't know who's what. Well, when they came down to it, they said, well, look, I'd rather work with this guy, and I'd rather work with that guy. I said, now, hold on. If that's the case, then just go out as the other name. So as the match went on, as the matches went on, there was a couple people, and the person from the newspaper said, hold on now. That guy right there, what's Lodi's real name?
Brad Kane, yeah.
Brad Kane, that's not Steve Corino.
Yeah, good old
Said,
Shaq. I've never looked at him better.
Said, is Steve Corino really here?
Yeah.
I said, yeah. I think I came and got you.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
you from the back and said, that's Steve Corino, isn't it? They said, yes, it is.
Yeah.
But you know, what happened was, too, on another show, Brad Anderson was scheduled to wrestle, and it was Gene Anderson's son. Well, Brad Anderson didn't come for some reason. I don't know what it was, and I had to stick another Brad Anderson out there. But hey, you got to do that every once in a while.
Yeah, I can't believe you remember me.
Mate, was he heavy to carry those days?
Man, it was tough.
I was like 170 pounds back
Man,
then.
he
I'm talking about in the ring, mate. Not
Oh
on-
yeah, I was his partner. Yeah. Oh yeah, I had no
As a matter of
clue.
fact, I couldn't even get in the ring.
I had no clue what was going on. Now, Bobby, you started in 1977. Am I right?
Yeah, I started in '77.
And you were 16.
I was 16 years old, as a matter of fact, and I was just telling Kevin earlier, I found some tapes of mine from about 1977, 78, working in Allentown and Hamburg TVs.
Wow.
And Vince McMahon and Bruno's saying, look at that thick hair on that man's head. But I was only like 17 years old wrestling and coming up there. But I started in Ohio at age 16. And, you know, it was a dream of mine, Steve.
I was
love
going to
wrestling.
say, did you grow up a wrestling fan?
No, I didn't grow up in a wrestling family. I grew up loving wrestling. As a matter of fact, it was the Sheik's territory in Ohio then. And at about 11 years old, you see, back then, if you weren't part of the National Wrestling Alliance or WWF, you weren't independent, you were considered outlaw.
Right.
So these guys worked for Al Haft, who ran Ohio years ago, and they had their own little company. And it was Hank Best, Leon Graham. As a matter of fact, a guy also wrestled for him by the name of Dr. Sam Shepard, who the movie The Fugitive was made from. As a matter of fact, Sam Shepard was going to wrestle in my hometown tonight, but then they had to cancel it because he died. You know, he started wrestling later on. But I started setting the ring up for those guys when I was 11.
Wow.
And they wouldn't even take me to the dressing room. They wouldn't say nothing. I mean, they took care of the business. I mean, even though I was working for them, and you know how it was, Luke.
Yeah.
I mean, brother, if you wasn't with it,
Kayfabe was kayfabe.
that's right. And they all came in and they were business, and they made sure, even if I was even setting the ring up, because I try to set the ring up to get in there to wrestle, right? They wouldn't even talk to each other. It was strictly business for the guys back in those days, you know.
Now, you broke in 64, right? In New Zealand?
61.
61, wow.
62, yeah.
So,
62, I was
Teenager,
just on
right?
last year. Same 15 years of age, the end of that.
Wow.
I was an apprentice engineer, and my next door neighbour was a bodybuilder. It's a short story here. He was a bodybuilder, and he won a national contest. The judge in the show was an ex-Mr. New Zealand who had turned wrestling promoter, and he said to my next door neighbour, hey, do you want to make some money with that body? And the guy said, yeah, well, I'd like to, yeah, down the road. And he was about 20 then. Brian Ashby, Bruno Becker. He came to the
Wow,
States
I heard that
and
name.
Puerto Rico, and he said, would you like to make some money? And the guy said, my neighbour said, yeah. And he says, well, come up to Coolman's Gym. Now, Coolman's Gym was about 12 miles away from where we lived. We lived in a suburb of Wellington City called Lower Hutt, and he had a motorbike, and after he was going there for about a couple of months, and he says to me, come into the gym with me. Now, this was a gym like you saw in the Rocky movies. The old tubes, the steam pipes going around, the old steam room, you know, the old kind, dirty, filthy, 2 rings, of course a boxing ring and a wrestling ring. Both had four ropes. New Zealand, it was always 4 ropes and rounds, and there was a boxing. And out of that gym came a lot of Commonwealth champions, you know, in the boxing. Coolman's Gym was notorious. And last year I went home to do 100 years of wrestling on the mat, a documentary, and I'm featured right through because I'm the last guy living who's still in the ring. And we went to that place. Of course, it's a nightclub now, but we went up inside it and talked about it from the when I had a guy with me who was in there in the 40s, and I was in there in the 60s.
Wow.
Coolman's Gym in Wellington, New Zealand, notorious. And when you look at that first Rocky movie and you see that dirty, filthy, dungy with steam pipes running around, and you can hear them rattling too when they're running the steam, and that's how it was.
Now, Bobby was talking about how, like, even at 11 years old, putting up the rings, how, you know, kayfabe was, you know, so tight. You know, you didn't, you know, bad guys and good guys didn't hang out. You didn't know the secrets of the business. Now, in New Zealand, was it any different, or was it very protected?
Very protected. You know, when I started, we never had television in the country, let alone television wrestling. Television never started till '67 in New Zealand.
Really?
And it was only from 3 o'clock in the afternoon to 8 o'clock at night. Then it went from 2 o'clock to 10 o'clock at night. By '70, we had 2 stations running. Anyhow, there was when you had wrestling on in town was when American wrestling came in, and it wasn't full time. When I started, you'd wait till a European wrestler, you know, like George Korienko or someone from, you know, Andre. I met Andre in the 60s. He was 350, and I worked with him.
Wow.
And I'll tell you about some entertaining spots in a minute about that. But I met these guys out when they came in. The promoter would book 3 towns a week, and they'd stay for about a month, and then '66. A gentleman came back from New Zealand who was a New Zealander but went to the Commonwealth Games, got a bronze medal in the Commonwealth Games wrestling, and then turned pro while he was in England and came back. In '66 we opened up full time every night of the week.
Wow.
And that's when I first started. And that's when Butch first started too. I started in '62, he started in '66. But I known him before that anyhow, and then '68 when we tagged up full time and started going out of the country.
Sweet William.
Sweet William, yeah, I got that.
And hey, let me ask you, did Barnett go over there from Australia and all to New Zealand?
I was in the '60s. Barnett went into Australia in '65. Jim Barnett.
Right.
People don't know that, but WCW.
Yeah, the original WCW.
Was a long time. And Jim Barnett, he was a raging fag, God bless him, but a lovable guy who knew the business, and he put the right people around him. And he was the one who got Ted Turner to put wrestling on the satellite. So if it wasn't for that guy at the start, it wouldn't have blossomed.
And do you know how he broke into business? He was in Chicago in college, and he went to Fred Kohler and said, your program is horrible. He said, in the program that
so you know the story, yes.
If you can do any better, then you do it, and that's how he broke into wrestling.
And he went from coast to coast.
Yeah.
Jim had when it was
and Johnny Doyle.
Jim Doyle.
Yeah, Johnny Doyle.
Yeah, that was his partner who owned hotels. They're both millionaires. He was a hotel owner from Houston. And they opened coast to coast television across, you know, then you had the bicycle, the tapes.
Yes, yeah.
The bicycle everywhere. And that's how Jim was. He went down to 65 and 72 and he was in Australia, and they did 85% business from 65 to 72. He had to get out in the end because you couldn't be in that money bracket if you didn't have an Australian partner.
Right, yeah,
Yeah,
the
amazing.
taxes, right?
Yeah, so that's how then the next Larry O'Day and Ron Miller took it over
Yeah.
then. He came to New Zealand then, and from '72, but Butch and me left. We left when he came to New Zealand. We left, and that was Morris and Paul Vachon are the ones that brought us over here in '72.
Wow. Now during the time from '62 to '65, before Jim Barnett came over to New Zealand, would you guys go to Australia to wrestle a little bit, or you were just in town?
I would go over there. '65 was the first time I went to work for Jim Barnett, and that's how I got the, I was gorgeous Teddy Williams. And that's how I started. And then gorgeous Teddy Williams, and he changed it to Sweet William.
Yeah, Sweet William.
And when I started
Crazy
working,
Nick Carter.
And when I started working for Jim Barnett in Australia, I'd go over there for a month and come back. And Jonathan Boyd, the Royal Kangaroo.
Yes.
And Norman Frederick.
And the guy sort of helped.
Murph the
Bobby-
Surf.
Yeah, Murphy the Surf. And the guy that was Jonathan Boyd's partner.
Yeah.
Murphy the Surfing, that's where I got my gimmick from.
Really?
He was a spin-off of Gorgeous George.
Right,
And
yeah.
I was a spin-off of Murphy the Surfing. Murphy was, I had a female valet, and I used to treat like an ass. Before I got to the ring, I'd have people wanting to kill me without my opponent there, because I have a gorgeous woman, and I make her spray it everywhere. If she didn't do it right, I'd slap her. Because the people were hot
Oh, yeah.
in New Zealand in those days. Anyhow, and here's a gentleman that more or less got Bobby started, was Billy Dundee.
Yeah.
He was over there. I've known Billy since '65.
Wow.
And I still talk to him regularly, and
Yeah, me
see him when
too.
I'm in Tennessee.
Yeah.
Wow. That's a heck of a start. Now your start's a little different. You're putting up rings. And then do you break in more full time with Nick Goulas?
Well,
Is that
no,
right?
no. Here's what happened actually. Was that I started setting the rings up for these guys. They wouldn't break me in the wrestling business. They wouldn't teach me nothing. I'd get in and roll around before the people got in. Of course, we'd take the rings down. They had no idea. They didn't want to break nobody in. As a matter of fact, just a little side note, these same guys was on the card that night in Columbus, Ohio, that Bill Miller and Carl Gotch went in and broke Buddy Rogers' arm.
Yeah.
They, as a matter of fact, they're listed on the card there. I have the old program. But what I was going to say was this, as a matter of fact, he had told me that back then they didn't have any power steering in the car. They would go up to Columbus to train from Chillicothe, which was 45 miles. They would stretch them so much. These guys that I was watching, they couldn't even hardly steer their cars. They'd have to pull over about 15 miles outside of Columbus and rest a while just to try to jump.
They couldn't, they couldn't drive.
Yeah, because they were stretched and,
Wow.
and worked over up in Columbus, But what I was getting ready to say was, so they wouldn't even break me in. They wouldn't smart me up. As a matter of fact, I had wrote a letter to a guy by the name of Ken Jugan. Back then, there was national magazines, very little TV because of the Sheik's TV was gone. But I would write out to these fan clubs and stuff like that. Well, a guy by the name of Ken Jugan was running over in West Virginia, who's Zoltan the Great. I wrote a letter to
Okay,
him.
I was gonna say, I
Good friend of
think the
mine.
name.
I wrote a letter to him, and my friend that was writing letters back and forth, and I said, I'd really like to be a wrestler. I sent a picture of myself. I was 16. I went to Clarksburg. He said, well, we're running a show in Clarksburg. I went down. There was an Indian there by the name of Chief Don Ricklow that brought the ring. Well, I showed up. These guys that I trained with, you see, they wouldn't break me in. But I said, could you please tell me where I could buy some boots at? They gave me this catalog that said K&H Wrestling Wear.
Oh, wow.
Now, let me tell you the strange story about that. I found that same catalog about 2 years ago. I called that number, and she went K&H.
No way. I was always wondering if.
Because I wrote my
first
name,
knee
because
pads
see,
there.
I'm Jimmy Hines,
Yeah.
and I kept thinking, Luke, man, nobody's going to want to buy a ticket to see Jimmy Hines wrestle, so I don't even know how I came up with the Bobby Fulton. I knew I was young, but I even got that signed on that little catalog that I found a couple years ago. But I'm trying to make a long story short.
No,
I went
no.
down to West Virginia to wrestle, and the guy looked at me and said, man, you're just a kid, and I really had no real training. I mean, and the guy said, I can't let that kid wrestle in my ring. Ended up being I did. The first match I had, Luke, I thought it was 30 minutes. We wrestled for about 5 minutes. Me and another guy who was writing for them magazine, them little kayfabe papers.
sheets.
Yeah, back then before it was really that. They came out of the dressing room and pulled me and him apart of the second match. I was black and blue from head to toe.
Because you weren't smartened up to anything,
No,
right?
I mean, we were, well,
Were not.
we
or-
weren't really. I mean, I didn't even know about the blade. I mean, I didn't know nothing. I was kind of looking around that dressing room, trying to listen and learn. But they pulled us apart. They thought we was going to kill each other. But on the way down there, what's funny is Ray Stevens had come from, and as a matter of fact, the Great Mephisto comes from my hometown, whose name's really Jimmy Alt. Frankie Kane, Jimmy Alt. My dad knew Ray Stevens in school a little bit. I said, Dad, we were driving to West Virginia that day. I said, Dad, if this stuff's fake, I ain't going to do it. He said, son, if it is, that's more reason to do it. You won't get hurt as bad. Oh. So my first match, I got done wrestling that night. I might have signed 2 autographs. They handed me $5, and I was at the height of my glory. I was on my way. You know what I'm saying. It was a dream come true because that's really what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
That was from 5 years old or whatever. People would ask me, Steve, they say, what do you want to do? I want to be a wrestler. I want to be a wrestler. So that's kind of how I got my start. Then, do you remember Wild Bull Curry?
Yeah.
Then at 16,
The eyebrows.
Yeah, and the big cauliflower ears.
Yeah.
They were running shows around Ohio.
Fred Curry.
Yeah, Flying Fred Curry. So I started working against them. I went to one show and they said, do you mind refereeing? I said, I'll do whatever you need me to do. So I refereed the first show. Then after that, Fred Curry, because he'd been on TV, he took me all around wherever he was working. And I was 16 working against Wild Bull and Flying Fred Curry, with Dr. Jerry Graham.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, you remember Dr. Jerry Graham? You remember him?
Yeah.
I do, yeah.
I took him home with me one time at 16. Could you imagine
And
what
he was
that was
known
like?
for being like legit crazy, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
man. Well, see, why I took him home was I had ran a show like at 17, and we brought him home. Well, my friend's dad owned a bar in town. Well, Jerry Graham blew every nickel he had, and they took him out of town to a hotel, and he woke up, he thought he was in the Smoky Mountains, but he was in southern Ohio. And then I had to take him home with me for about 2 weeks and he dried out. But he was something else, Dr. Jerry Graham. So this is all when I'm 16, 17 years old.
What an
This is going
education,
on.
right?
Yes.
Was Luke Graham around then?
No. Dr. Jerry was by himself, and then he got another guy named Jerry Jaffe out of Toledo, became Jerry Graham Jr. And they were tag teaming up against Bull and Fred, and then I would started teaming up against Bull and Fred.
How were the houses?
They were good. They were good because Fred and Bull had been on TV for years.
Yeah.
So they didn't need to be on TV anymore because they're household names,
Yeah.
And this wasn't with the Detroit office, was it?
No.
This was.
They had their own little company. They had them. And Chief White Owl was an Indian wrestler, had just passed away a couple years ago. He had worked for them. Some other guys, maybe Al Costello, Fabulous Kangaroo, worked, and guys, but it wasn't part of the Detroit office then. But they were running their own little small type territory.
Wow.
Like the Poffos were up in when we were there.
In
Remember the
Kentucky,
Poffos?
Yes, sir.
They were running out of Lexington. Remember?
Yes, sir. They sure was.
They'd all been on television for Jarrett or the Goulas.
And Nick Goulas.
And now they just pulled away and they're running.
Hey, I'll just tell you this, not jumping ahead, but
No, go
I
ahead.
shared this recently, and you guys will get a laugh out of this. Me and Eric Gimber, I started wrestling as soon as my dad said, one thing I need you to do is graduate from high school. Because, see, I was going up and doing, the night of our graduation ceremony, I was doing jobs on WWF television. I didn't go to my graduation ceremony. I was up in Hamburg and Allentown doing the TV.
Yeah.
So as soon as I graduated from high school, I packed my car up and I left. I went to Kentucky and started wrestling for these guys, independent guys. So I met a guy by the name of Eric Embry, who was wrestling as Don Starr at the time. So Eric said, let's me and you go to Nashville and talk to Nick Goulas. So me and Eric went down there, and I got in the wrestling office, and see, at that time, Luke, I began to think, man, maybe all this wrestling is just 5, 10, 15, 20, except for the New York office, paydays, and maybe there ain't no wrestling offices. Well, we got down there, and there's Nick Goulas was sitting in the office. We walked in there, and Steve, it's like you and I are sitting here, and Nick Goulas is sitting there where the camera is. He said, hey, boys, you boys are what we call jabronis. I elbowed Eric like, man, he's complimenting us. I mean, because they didn't teach you
You
the
really
lingo.
want-
Yeah.
We didn't know.
You thought it was a big compliment,
Yeah,
right?
man. Hey, I thought, man, we made it now. But the thing of it was, he said, "I'll tell you what, you boys are going to be called. They like brother tag teams. You're going to be Bob and Don, the Fulton brothers." He said, "We're going to order you outfits and everything." When we got the outfits, we got them, and it was great. We got our check. We owed him about $20.
Oh. Do you remember what your first payday was?
My first payday was I think £1.10, or £1.50, £1.50 of that. It was pounds then.
Yeah.
Pounds was $2 then.
Wow.
So you got $2?
You got
Yeah,
$3.
and when I went home to work for Barnett, you know what I was making? $5, £5.
Mm-hmm.
£5 match was $10. Don't forget those days there was only two professional matches on the card.
Wow, yeah.
Oh, wow,
yeah,
wow.
yeah.
So there was 2 matches.
Yeah, two. It was amateur to half time. One amateur club. There's no amateurs at schools.
Right.
One amateur club against another amateur club, and the kids and families that all come from those clubs to support their
Their
the
school-
kids,
yeah, yeah.
the
It was a
kids
draw
and that.
house.
And then there'd be one light heavyweight, or junior heavyweight, which is around 175, 180 pound. That's me, and that would be 8 5-minute rounds, and the main match was 8 8-minute rounds. Now, if the main match didn't go at least 6, the people would riot.
Right.
I had to do at least 6 rounds too. I had to do
How many
30
minutes were they?
5 minutes each
5 minutes
round.
round. Wow.
And then in the round 2, when the round stops in a tag, one guy can take the ref and the other guy can go
Get a little heat,
sucker
yeah.
punch. But in a single match, you have to rebuild.
But
Wow.
like he was saying too, even the guys when I started, they would have 2 or 3 matches on the card, and every match was 2 or 3 falls back then.
Yeah, 2 or 3 falls.
And in some territories, they'd go back to the
I was
dressing
gonna say
room.
they go back,
and
rest
come
for a
back.
second, and come back,
Come
right?
back,
Yeah, and 2, and then what they do was, in the end, what they do, the promoter would do, we'd have when Butch started and that, then we'd have the 2 matches before the mission. We'd have an amateur, then I would work against somebody, then Butch would work with somebody, and then would shoot a G. We called it those days a G, just like the Italians, with the
Right.
those who do a job or someone a G, and we come back and after the mission have the tag, which a
Work
lot
the
of
angle.
Wow, so yeah, you
Yeah,
did.
which
work
a
the
lot of
angle.
promotions are doing today.
Yeah.
Sure.
In these little backyard indies,
Yeah.
they do that, and they have so many 8 guys on the card. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
you got to.
Couple
There's a
of
big,
cities,
there's a
yeah.
big
Oh, you know
tag
that,
or a
you
6-man at the
remember
end.
those.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, because
And
the
still
reason
do it,
why-
right?
Before we go on, I was with, I gotta say this, I was with there, after 3 years when Bobby started, and Bill Dundee was giving him a break and a big promotion. We were selling out nearly every night.
Oh
weren't
yeah,
we?
yeah.
We had it
That
hot
territory
there.
was hot.
We had it hot.
In Memphis.
They built the fabulous ones and they brought the sheepherders in, and we did a hell of an angle with Jerry Jarrett's father-in-law. He got hospitalised, and then the feud started. And then we had Adrian Street there. We had a hell of a crew. Yeah, Bobby started then. Later on, I had major feuds with him, and that. Up into barbed wire cage matches,
Yeah.
Yeah.
all over the place, and then later on after WWF, I'm working for him.
No, it's
working
okay.
for him.
Hey, that's the cycle of the wrestling business.
When is the
Yeah.
first time you guys meet? Is it like
It
82-ish in
I'll
San
tell you-
Antonio?
I'll tell you.
No,
I'll tell you what
81.
happened, and you probably won't remember. It was Thanksgiving Day, and Bill Dundee had Thanksgiving dinner. You and Jonathan Boyd came, and also Adrian and Miss Linda came and had Thanksgiving at Bill Dundee's house. That day was the first time, I think, because you see what people don't understand is, when he was a heel and I was a babyface, we didn't talk to each other every night.
Right.
We had separate dressing rooms oftentimes, and nobody talked. You didn't talk about your matches. Today, guys will talk 30 minutes about a 15-minute match.
Oh my
But
God.
back then,
And after the match, these kids today, I said, the effing thing's over. You know what I mean?
but like say for example, when they came into territory there in Memphis, I was working there, and I was underneath. I was the bottom of the rung, but I was happy to be there because it was a good place. There was a lot of talent there in Memphis then. a lot of people in different parts of the country didn't think much of Memphis, Tennessee. But then when you think about the people that either passed through there or came out of there, was a lot of tremendous talent. You know what I'm saying? People used to make fun of the Tennessee style of wrestling.
They still do. When they do some Tennessee ice bars, it's notorious.
Yeah, it is. But it's
yeah,
good.
why is that? Is it because it was more of like an entertaining style as opposed to you know, a kick and punch of New York
I was just talking about the other day. Butch, you know, I'm not putting us over here, but we were known as hardcore before.
Sure.
Hardcore.
Yeah, absolutely.
In the 70s, we were starting doing 4-way chain matches, barbed wire matches in the 70s. And I even had my first fire match, I think, sometime in the 70s. Anyhow, I go to Tennessee, I'm having a street fight. You know, you go out in your clothes and you rip each other's clothes off. You know how the winner became, how you become a winner? If I rip him down to his underpants.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's the
And
truth.
if he's left in his underpants, I'm the winner.
Yeah, that's the truth.
So that was different than.
And then the next night, underneath us, they were having a dog food match.
Yeah, the losers ate dog food.
Dog food. I said, this is and they said, brother, this is what draws attention.
Yeah, but it still works.
Yeah,
It's amazing. And I tell you what, the houses got so big. I don't know if you remember, Luke, but in some towns they could have ran. Then we'd go to a spot show, and I can think of Campbellsville, Kentucky, for one reason. Miss Christine Jarrett had a lot of towns. She could have ran that town. There were so many people turned away. Yeah. They could have had 2 shows that night. That's how hot. And as a matter of fact, what was funny was Bill Dundee had told me, Luke. He said, "Man, now usually the territory starts slowing down, so save your money. It could be a rough coming up." And buddy, it just took off. I was blessed to be on the bottom, but enjoying the ride. You know what I'm saying? As if, like you said, it was big business everywhere.
I had one thing to. I went to Jerry, and I still talk to Jerry Jarrett. Call him on the phone with bullshit and that, because you know I got really sick for about a week. They're running up and down those roads, and we were main event every night, doing everything, blood and guts, and I was run down, and I was off for about a week, and I had to be in hospital for 3 days. He paid me main event money for that week.
Yeah.
Wow, okay. And that's good, because you always hear that Memphis wasn't a great paying territory.
When I tell people some money I made in that territory, but I went to Julie one day, and I says, how come every time, you know, we had an angle running with the Fabulous Ones every week, the same towns, and then we ran with them for about 6 months. You know what I mean?
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, same Memphis, Louisville, Evansville.
Right.
Yeah.
Every week.
Every week we ran with them, and then we were thinking, and then it would simmer down, you know, and then we heat the angle up again, shoot something on television. We had a lot of different gimmicks, and every time we heated the angle up again, all of a sudden, Jerry Lawler would be on the card, and he would bring in Nick Bonkwell, hair against belt, and I'd say, the place is sold out. I can't wait to Jerry with my check.
Yeah.
It was a $500 or $600 check for that night.
Yeah.
For that night, and I say, look at this, and he says, yeah, but there was a bill, and I said, but they just flew in. I said, who did the angle and the work for it? He says, hey. He says he's in Memphis. He says he's my partner. At the time, Jerry only had a third of Memphis, but then there was a little hold up later on, and that when he
Was you still in the territory when he did that?
Yeah, he's still in the territory, and that was our exit, because he had his own crew coming in.
Because what we didn't know was, here's what had happened. And I was the underneath guy, but I was
This is
there.
good, because people will on this have speculated like that. Nobody's really given that full story.
Jerry was away down in the Caribbean.
Right. When you sometimes, and Luke can tell you, when you say, for example, I was employed there and I worked there and I rode with Bill Dundee, but I was the bottom of the card, so I was no threat to anybody. One time they gave me just a little bit of push, where they gave me a win on TV, and it took me about 50 times to say this, but I said, I may be an underdog going in, but if Bill says I can win, and I'll win. But it took me 50 times. What I was getting ready to say was, when you're no threat, people talk to you.
Right.
So
and you got ears open.
They came up to me and said, hey, Bobby, there's getting ready to be some changes. You want to be involved? I said, man, because I'd worked out independent outlaw, and I didn't really know all the things that was going on, but I knew a little bit. Certain guy that's working in New York now came up to me and said, as a matter of fact, he's got a Yosemite Sam mustache. He said, don't tell who it is. He said, Bobby, would you be?
Sagebrush.
He said, would you be interested? And Dutch was really good to me. He let me stay with him and his wife and everything, and they're super nice. But he said, would you be interested in making, you know, if something came down? I said, brother, you can't fight City Hall. And about 30 minutes later, Jerry Lawler come up to me and said, Bobby, you can't fight City Hall, huh? I said, no, you can't. But see, on that Saturday morning when we were going to do TV, it wasn't even going to, we were going to ride up there, and half of us wasn't even going to be there anymore. Because Lance and Jerry Lawler and the whole thing was changing.
Now, for people that don't know, basically the territory was going to split. Before that, it was Gulas and Jerry Jarrett, right?
For years.
And then Jerry, did he buy out or push Nick out?
Well, there's speculation on,
Yeah, right.
Not saying.
He pushed him out. Well, as a matter of fact, like I was saying, Nick's son George was a wrestler, and the day that me and Eric went in there, George came in that day to Nick and said he was looking at their program. I'm talking about their program they sell in Memphis. He said, Daddy, I just don't understand it, how they're doing that kind of business down here. Look at these matches. Now I'm thinking, and I'm a young kid myself thinking, why are you looking at the wrestling program to try to figure out what's going on? You know what I'm saying? But I guess they wanted to keep George down at Nick's Inn, which was down in Nashville.
Because George was not known as
he wasn't
the exceptional.
He wasn't
he was no Steamboat.
No, he wasn't a skillful worker. But like Luke said, I think that they finally just pushed Nick out to where he wasn't.
I just heard that.
Yeah, me too.
I wasn't around.
Me too, because you know Jerry Jarrett had Jerry Lawler.
Yes.
Fabulous Jackie Fargo had he was, and I'll tell you this, he passed away, but he liked Nick Gulas.
Yeah.
Fargo did. And Tojo Yamamoto, they were with him, and they were like, it was kind of like Bill Dundee was over like a movie star, and Jerry the King Lawler as far as baby faces before the Fabulous ones came along, you know. But then there was Tojo Yamamoto and Jackie Fargo, and they were kind of probably that old school mindset.
Yeah, the old guard.
Yeah, but finally they went over there with Jerry Jarrett too, and then Nick was gone.
Now,
of course.
Now then, going forward, there could be a split. There was going to be a split between Jerry Jarrett and Jerry Lawler.
Yeah, and
do you know what led to that? Was it
here? And I rode in the car every Saturday from Memphis back from television, and Jerry Jarrett and Bill Dundee would be there. And not that I know everything, but it finally got to where he was spending a lot of time in Florida, Jerry Jarrett was, because the territory was doing really good.
Because he was booking, was he booking Tampa? Or
no.
He was booking Atlanta for a while.
Yeah,
right?
that was years before that.
Okay.
That was when he was 16 or 17.
Right.
When Jim Barnett was there, I think. But what happened was Bill Dundee was booking. And Jerry Jarrett, when the business, it's like they said about Jim Barnett, he used to walk into Omni, and if it was sold out, he said, oh my goodness, I'm going home, I'm so bored. You know what I mean? Because business is great.
Boy.
You know what I'm saying? So Jerry Jarrett's down at Treasure Island, I think it is, or somewhere like that. And we're all working the territory, and business is booming like he said. I mean, it's selling out, packed. So finally, I know what happened was it went from our crew of guys to Jerry Jarrett, I guess, went to him, worked out a thing, because at that TV that Saturday, Jerry Jarrett said, I know some of you all heard a lot of things, but we have worked something out, and Jerry Lawler's the booker, because I guess he said, hey, you want to do this and do that, then you're the booker. Then we had...
No, the week before, Jarrett was down south.
Right, in Florida.
And the TV contract was up for renewal.
Okay, I didn't know that part.
Now when it was signed, you know, Lawler, Jerry didn't know. He thought Jerry Jarrett thought, you know, it's in the next month.
So that's the powerful.
So there's Jerry Lawler and Lance Russell. They went in and signed the contract.
So they had the TV contract.
So that's why.
So they basically could
Bill
have just...
Dundee called Jerry Jarrett and told him what happened. At that time, Jerry Lawler had a whole crew sitting in Mississippi.
That's right.
And he was going to be, because they were checking out who was going to be in the new crew.
Because there was, then after that, when he did that, and Jerry, see, now I just found that out. You telling me about the TV. I knew something was going on, but I didn't know what it was. But because then Memphis, it was like 50 guys on the card, because it was still the Jerry Jarrett's crew and
Lawler's
new crew.
Lawler did all, and so Jerry came down and they settled, and that's when Lawler only had, this is hearsay.
Right.
Lawler only had a third of Memphis. That's why he was always on the top of Memphis. Now, after this power play, they settled it that Jerry Jarrett gave him a third of the territory.
Right.
Well, so he got so instead of just having one town, he had 1/3 of the whole territory.
Right.
And on top of that, Jerry Jarrett says, here's the book. So
That's
Bull
right.
Dundee, Bull Dundee went down to, it took a step down to assist him.
And Dundee was the booker up until then, and
Yes.
and things were hot.
It was red
Wow.
hot.
And I was with it. And that's when I they said, Jerry come up to me, he says, we'll be weeding you out and that. So I started working out. Then we run that angle off with the feminist ones. And then, of course, I worked with Lawler and Dundee till I finished there.
Yeah.
And that was it. They gave me more or less, Lawler said, blah, 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 blah.
Time to go.
Yeah, but I'm glad that because we went out when we were hot.
Sure.
Otherwise, even though sheep herders got beaten all the time, we worked with these guys and we were canvas backs every night. I put the whole thing together, the angle to work with these guys together, but that's business. We did the jobs for them every night.
Right.
But we came back the following week and still did good business. You know
Right.
what I mean?
Yes,
And
sir.
you can hold your heat.
Yeah.
Like the kids today. That's why they don't know how. When you all run in the same towns every week, you got to learn how to keep yourself hot. And today they don't.
And
There's
the
no
thing-
heat in the business today.
And the thing, and it's just like when I first started, I was a heel, and as a matter of fact, but because of whatever reason, I never got a chance to do it much. But I did it recently at this fan fest in Charlotte. Magnum TA and come up and said, "Man, that was pretty good." And it's like he said years ago when I was running Ohio, Ronnie Garvin and I, we had a bunch of younger guys. And we were saying, do you know how, they don't know how to get heat, Luke, you're exactly right.
No.
Don't know how to keep it. Now listen to me, to draw money, to draw really good money, and I mean, I know the WWE does business or this and that, but to draw money, you can't draw unless you have a hot heel that's got heat and a hope of a baby face to beat them. That's the old school
Yes.
formula, because I'm gonna tell you this right now.
It's a formula today too to get.
That's what I'm saying,
Yeah.
but here's the thing, think about it.
Oh,
When Vince McMahon did the angle with Stone Cold Steve Austin, he was a hot heel, right?
Yeah.
And it's pretty scary when the owner becomes the hottest heel. What's the negotiating point there with the rest of the boys in the heels, right? But you walk down the street, tons of people had Austin 316 shirts on.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how
Yeah.
hot it was. And that's really the last
They
big...
love to hate them.
Yeah.
Yes, but but what I'm saying is, it's like you guys, and not only did they do this in Tennessee, I was in San Antonio when they did the exact same thing, the same type of business, the blood and guts. As a matter of fact, to me, Tommy Rogers and I know we're jumping ahead, they made Tommy Rogers and I, and as a matter of fact, people still talk about it today. It's 2013. This happened back in the 80s. It's because him and Butch made us. The reason being is we were considered, I'm not going to be politically incorrect here, we were called white meat baby faces.
yeah.
And that was a term that was used, not that we were white,
Pretty boys.
but
you
we
know
were
what I
the
mean?
and look here.
Little
we-
guys with big hearts.
Yeah.
and but not only that, the thing of it is we were there to draw the girls. But you see, when they worked against us and it was blood and guts, they made fighters out of us, like he said, little guys with big hearts. It even helped us even that much more. You understand what I'm
Probably
saying?
was 20 pounds lighter than he is.
Yeah,
now.
yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Thanks, Luke.
No.
Thanks. I used to-
You were
I have to
shape.
wear my shirt.
Hey,
So.
I remember when
So-
Bill Dundee got him in shape and
Yeah.
had abs,
Yeah.
and he was.
I was training hard, and John, I was telling him, Jonathan, boy, I told you guys earlier, was telling me about protein powder and stuff like that. I mean, back then, well, I guess because it was a territory where you worked a lot, guys would help you if you were eager to learn.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying?
And is
So-
that because they saw, like, let's help this guy because not only we can draw money with this guy, right?
Yeah, that's
You're helping
exactly-
each other out so that you'd have somebody to work with, right? And make money off
I'm
of.
going to jump ahead here. Just talking about that. Last weekend, I ran 3 shows. Legends of Wrestling, upstate New York. We were in the big arenas in Jamestown, Elmira, and we did Youngstown the last night. And we've got this young Italian guy on the card, and the promoter said to me, you know, he's from Youngstown, he's got his friend here, let's do something with him. And he'd been on the, I guess he'd never worked 3 nights in a row.
Right.
I've got legends of wrestling, Roddy Piper, Jimmy Hart, because I'm doing Piper's Pit. I've got Marty Jannetty, X-Pac, Tatanka, and myself. I'm Beefcake. So I've got some legends there, right? And this last night, we're giving this kid a push in his hometown, and I went to him and I said, what, you know, the match, and he was working against Tom Brandy, Salvador Cesar, who's a master at the business.
I know.
You know what I mean?
That's who broke me in.
Yeah, and now Tom's got his heat, and then he's giving the kid now. The kid comes off the corner with a thing. Now it's his turn to fire up. This match goes south. It went south, and I comes back to the dressing room. I says, mate, when is your time to come back? You're supposed to go into top gear. You know what he turned around to me and says? I was tired. Fancy telling a guy.
Yeah.
Lord, right?
You know nowadays, if you said that to any booker, he would turn around and slap you. Tell you, get your bag and see you.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. Jerry Lawler did tell me down there when I was working in Tennessee, because a lot of times I was beat all the time. Well, like Louisville one night, I was walking out. People said, "Oh, he's going to lose." I went back and I said that, and Jerry Lawler looked at me and said, "Well, maybe it's time for you to leave, because if you were a baby face and the people didn't like, that wasn't your job." You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You were either a heel or you were a baby face. There was no shades of gray.
Yeah.
No.
And I mean, thinking about that, it's like he said, a baby face got to have fire.
Yeah.
If he stops at that and has no fire, he has nothing.
And then the fans have nothing to believe in, right?
The fancy telling a guy, you know,
I'm tired.
You know, he's 25, body, everything. I was too tired. Well, you know, my old saying to these guys, have you got a closet at home? Well, hang your effing boots up.
That's right. I mean, but it's the truth though. What you say, you got to have the baby face, and you know, the baby face has got to have fire.
Yeah.
And the heel has got to be able to get heat.
Yeah.
And heat is not. That's not heat. A lot of people say that's heat. That's not heat. Heat, man, is when the people standing up trying to get to him. You
get in the ring.
That's exactly
They
right.
want to fight for you, yeah.
That's
right?
exactly right. When you have the people that hot, that's heat. When they cheer over a move, that's not heat. That's the wrong terminology. I mean, not from what I came from anyway. And you know, Steve.
I don't know. Where's the first guys that you got? When's the first time you guys actually meet and start a program? Is it now San Antonio? Do you guys have any interaction in Memphis?
San Antonio may have clashed a bit of time, but the big one was when they had the team together. See, San Antonio, Bobby was a single.
Right, you were saying
I came in as a
he
single,
was working,
and you were with Jonathan, right?
And
Adrian Street.
I was with Butch. Butch come back in there.
Okay.
Jonathan was a bad rack, and Butch come back. Jonathan, 6 weeks, we did the same thing we did it everywhere. We came in, and we worked television matches. And I used to say to the promoter, you know, we don't need to win. We just need to get DQ to beat up our opponents. Television matches, we just need to be brutal.
Mm-hmm.
So then usually around 6 weeks or 4 weeks on television, we always brought a mapping of the area we're in, like if we're in Texas or we're in Tennessee, and we'd show the people the map of that, and then we'd push it down the toilet with a New Zealand flag. You know, we'd knock all the week, all the time we'd be knocking the people in that area. Then we'd bring them the map of the area and say, well, this is the latrine of the states. You know, in the United States, this state is the latrine, and push it down the toilet. And then, you know, either the promoter or the commissioner would say, you've gone overboard. You know, you can talk about that, but that's, you know, that's personal thing. And that someone would step up to the plate, or we'd deck the commissioner.
Yeah.
And that's what we did with Jerry Jarrett's father-in-law.
Yeah.
He was hospitalized. He came in and he said that you've gone overboard. We did something And he said you did overboard. Oh, we did that thing, the interview with that, and then we went in a match, and then we didn't stop the brutality. We pushed the referee over. He got in the ring, and then we decked him. There's a little
Eddie
blood.
Marlin?
Eddie Marlin,
Eddie
a little
Marlin,
blood.
Yeah.
And we did that with the Fuller's father too. We did that with a lot of Joe Blanchard. I put Joe Blanchard here. He is.
And that formula worked everywhere, right?
Yeah, and that's what you could do then.
Joe Blanchard, Joe Blanchard got carried out, and they said you're finishing the territory. And then someone stepped up and says that's too easy for them. Let us Dick Murdoch and Manny Fernandez or whatever it was. And
that's when the heat.
We did the gimmick on Bobby Jaggers, and remember he went to the bone on his arm.
Yeah.
I hit him with the coal miners. My boys carried that.
Yeah.
Come off the corner, went to and Joe Blanchard came, and Joe with one hip came into the ring like that, and I said, "You come in too, you may as well have it too," and that's what started it, the feud.
Yeah, you're right. And
they did it everywhere, and that and I told the promoter, and it worked, and away we went.
As a kid, I grew up in like the Philadelphia area, so right around 82, early 83, we got Southwest Championship Wrestling on USA. And I remember you beating up everybody, you guys beating up everybody, and shitting on the states and stuff like that. And I would go into school and I would think like, well, we're going to learn today why New Zealand hates us so much. And it would always be like Russia or North Korea or something like that.
No one heard of New Zealand.
Yeah, like you'd be like, why does New Zealand hate the? Yeah, like what are these guys? And and to my friends, like we didn't know anything about New Zealand, so we're thinking these guys are fucking crazy.
I'm gonna say something before you go on, Steve. Hey, America, I love you. This is my country. This is my home. New Zealand's okay. It's a long way away, but this is my home. But it was my.
But the thing of it is, you see, what people don't understand is, to draw money, it has to be personal.
Yes, yeah.
And we always used to quote one little line, and this was from a guy who was with me, and he's passed away now, Jonathan Boyd.
Yeah.
America is full of air-conditioned cars, air-conditioning home, and air-conditioned woman.
But they would do that. They would do that, and Jonathan Boyd, he was
hated in the dressing room, so he was hated by the fans.
Yeah.
The boys hated him.
Yeah.
Why did the boys hate him?
Because he had a chip on his shoulder.
Did he?
From Jim when all the Americans come in there, we all did jobs. The Australians did jobs. They're making, all of a sudden they're making so many dollars a week, maybe $100 a week. When Jim came in, they're making $250 a week, but they got beaten in 3 minutes, 4 minutes. So when Jonathan got to come over here, Jonathan was 230, 240, only 5'9", but now was his time to get his own back.
But the thing of it was, and like you said, a lot of people hated him. But now me, like I told you about the protein powder, and he would talk to me about things.
He was more of a mentor to you in the beginning, right?
When I went to San Antonio, he would talk to me about interviews and stuff like that.
Great for the business. Great brain.
And he would take me to the side, and he would tell me. As a matter of fact, I'll never forget this, Luke. That Thanksgiving Day, we ate there at Bill Dundee's, which I know you forgot. There's so much going on. But Jonathan Boyd came to me and he said, "Now listen, Bobby. When you're around the boys, you need to be more sociable and be more in on the conversation." Because I sat over there with Jamie at a little table. I mean, but you understand what Jamie was a kid, but what I'm saying
was Jamie crazy then too?
But what I'm saying, he wasn't. Yeah, he wasn't.
Hey, Uncle Luke.
He wasn't. But what I'm saying was, Jonathan Boyd was even telling me then.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing. Sometimes, and I don't know if you see it now, and like I said, I'm kind of half in the wrestling business, half out of it. But you see, it's like the first time, if it's my phone ringing, will someone turn it off? Dig through any pocket you can. But you see, when I came down to it's in a jacket probably, and I apologize. When I came to San Antonio.
I'm remembering this.
Huh?
I'm remembering this. When you have interviews and that, you had your phone turned off.
I did. I thought I had it turned off, but see, I can't work that one. I can't work that one. You understand? You better watch it. I'm gonna send you back to New Zealand.
He's still learning.
You bloody Yank.
He's still learning.
Well, I don't even know how to turn the phone off.
Zane's texting whoever back.
Yeah, thanks. Just turn it off.
He doesn't know how to turn the phone off.
I don't know how, but you know what? But I'll go back to this real quick. The first time I heard cell phones was when I went to Australia in the early '90s. I was on a bus and everybody had them before we had them over here.
Oh, mate.
In Australia.
I was in Hong Kong.
I was freaking out.
That the And OJ killed his.
Thank you for those
God
quotation
bless
marks.
him. And
Gotta save it just in case
and
we
I'm
get
in
sued.
a park. In a park,
Need to escape.
the kids are out for lunch, and there's about 100 kids in the park, sitting in the park at lunchtime outside the school. Everyone's got a cell phone. Everybody's
Isn't
texting.
that amazing?
Everyone's texting. I'm in England in the late 90s, and I'm on the buses going to shows all over the country every day. Everybody's texting. America, we got off the subject of wrestling.
No, it's okay. We'll get back to it.
But
Yeah.
again,
Back to the cell
technically, the States didn't get into texting until 4 years ago.
I know.
Yeah.
That's
And
amazing.
people were texting heavy from the mid 90s.
Japan too. Yeah.
But going back to wrestling, I'll throw it back in there. You talk about Joe Blanchard. Luke and I was working up in Tennessee, and Luke and Butch and them was doing business down in San Antonio, and I got a chance, Luke and them, to bring me down, and I'd worked underneath, and this and that, and I was training hard and everything. But Luke gave me an opportunity, gave me my first break. As far as a push, I went in first, and I worked against Adrian Street, who had been kissing everybody, giving them that Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer nose, and him and Miss Linda and this and that. And then finally, when I worked against Eric Embry, but I'll never forget, and I never did ask them the answer, but when I went into San Antonio and I went to that office there near the, you know what I'm talking about, Joe Blanchard's.
It's a junction.
The junction, and he had the office next door. I walked in, and that blonde-haired girl worked in the office.
Yeah.
I can't remember her name.
Denny.
Something. Renee.
Rennie.
I looked at Joe Blanchard and I said, "Hey, nice to meet you." As a matter of fact, I had brought some stuff down. They had left in Tennessee. You had left in Tennessee. I brought it down. Me and Tony Falk drove 24 hours straight from Tennessee because I brought him with me. Tony Falk had been working for Papa's, running the TV, setting the ring up, everything. And he started with Luke and him down there. But what I was getting ready to say was, I met Joe Blanchard, and he said, when a person meets somebody, either they see little money, big money, or no money. And a guy who's a booker, like Luke has done, he can look at a guy, and he can see if he can draw money. And that's what guys have to be, is like a twinkle in somebody's eye.
Yeah.
Do you understand what
I
I'm saying?
totally agree with that.
A twinkle
I know
in his
by
eye.
looking, yeah, I look at somebody.
When you can tell.
Yeah.
And you can tell, and like a lot of wrestlers who's wrestled, you go and work some of these independent shows. If you just lock up with a guy, or you watch him walk around the dressing room, you can tell whether he's with it or not.
Yeah.
Right?
No,
Is
I
that right,
totally
Luke?
agree. Yeah.
And I mean that, but they gave me an opportunity there and gave me a push, and like Luke said, finally, San Antonio was doing really good too, and we were wrestling opposition to world class.
The Dallas
Von Erichs.
office, yeah.
Von Erichs and the Freebirds had a big feud going.
And
in different
he would
style,
outdraw.
too, yeah.
But we only had Spanish television in San Antonio, and we would outdraw them. They would be on the north end of town at the Joe and Harry Freeman Coliseum. Is that right?
Yeah.
And we were at the Hemisphere Arena.
Wow. See, I didn't realize that you guys went
There
head
was
to
a
head for a while.
Head all the time. They would even come down to our Corpus,
Temple,
around
Corpus Christi.
Every time they had Kamala, and they brought in Brody against Kamala, they outdid us. But then, Bruiser married a Kiwi.
Yes.
Did he?
Yeah, and
Yes.
I still talk to Barbara on the internet. But because when Bruiser would work for us, then he'd work for them. Bruiser played the game.
Yes, he did, didn't he?
And God bless him, but he was money. Anyhow, but we ran against him. And they had that thing going with the woman at the time too, Garvin.
Yeah,
Jimmy
and
Garvin,
Precious
and Precious
Yeah.
and the other girl.
David Von Erich
Yeah.
with them. Yeah.
No,
Oh, Sunshine.
Sunshine.
Yeah.
And the whole Brian Adams.
Angle, yeah.
Chris Adams,
that was a heavy.
Chris Adams, yeah, it was.
That was a heavy. Yeah, Chris Adams. That was a heavy angle because
Sure was.
The woman was a heavy. That was the hook on that angle.
Oh yeah. But still, when they would come to San Antonio and they'd be head to head against us, we would end up outdrawing them. Right? Is that right?
Yeah.
No, were you booking at this time
Yeah,
in San
yeah.
Antonio?
Yes.
Now, was that your first place that you booked?
Yeah, that was the first place. I when we came in to Tennessee for I would go up to Jarrett's place, to Jerry Jarrett's place with Bill Dundee, and we would lay out, Jonathan, me and Bill, we would lay out our stuff because we carried that angle on for a while, and then we'd and Bill too would discuss with about Adrian, because Bill was working with Adrian all the time.
Mhm.
Bill and Adrian are similar styles, because Bill worked out in British style before,
Yeah,
sure.
when he was in New Zealand. Don't forget, we didn't in Australia, before Jim Barnett came down, there was no punching or kicking.
Right.
You know,
Wow.
and you didn't use the ropes, very rarely use the rope, you chain wrestle. But you learn to chain wrestle, when you talk about chain wrestling today, people think it's on the mat. You can chain wrestle standing up, do a lot of stuff, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's, those two tangoed, and they were a
Yeah.
marriage.
Hey, the first match, okay, Memphis TV was red hot, right?
Yeah.
Live television. Here came Adrian Street out. He's wrestling a black guy named Ira Reese. Do you remember this? Adrian starts skipping around the ring. This was back in the early 80s
Yeah.
when that wasn't
81.
right. With the lipstick, and he's giving the bird. Now he's skipping around the ring giving the bird, but all of a sudden his first move that he always did, he would, like if you're getting ready to face off, he'd jump up, straddle you, and give you a great big kiss.
Ride you, yeah.
He'd ride you and ride you right down, give you a great big kiss, and get up and keep skipping. Well, he got Ira Reese, that black guy, rode him down, gave him a big kiss. Ira Reese's eyes was that big on live TV, man. I think they got a lot of calls about that.
Oh.
Yeah.
But I mean, could you imagine?
Yeah. Especially,
Adrian was anti-queer.
Hmm?
He was
a man's man.
Yeah.
He was anti-queer. Anyone touch him with that, he'd turn around. And the little bastard was strong as an ox. He could put people down just by grabbing by the wrist. You know.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. He really got me. What happened was I had seen him work in Tennessee. I had worked with him in Louisiana. I'd worked with him in San Antonio. He was getting ready to come into Louisiana, and I'd been working there. Well, when Adrian came in, I already knew his stuff he did and what I did. Well, when he got out to the ring, he's just starting in Louisiana. So he got ready to take his jacket off. I went out and did that. He said, no. He said, you're supposed to wait until I do that, because you see I wasn't established. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So here's what he
wow.
did. He
Okay.
said, no. Because we'd worked other territories. I
Yeah.
already knew it. But when he went to do the jacket with the girl and all the stuff, I went out and got someone in the audience before he could get the heat. Well, here's how he paid me back. It was really funny. And a couple of times, like one time I was working in San Antonio and I was full of P&V, you know what I'm saying? One time I remember he grabbed a belt and started coming down in my teeth like this. I caught it. I said, are you okay? He said, I just wanted to make sure you're okay. I said, I am.
That was enough of a warning, right?
But then in San Antonio, I was working for World Class or something later on, years later. Adrian came in. You know how Bill Watts would send guys over. So Adrian never forgot that time I did that. As he was just starting Louisiana and I went out and did the woman. Here's what he did to me. Sunshine was my manager and Miss Linda. Adrian tied me up like a pretzel and held me for 3 or 4 minutes. He would let me up enough to get to my feet. He would tie me back up again. But you see, he wasn't saying nothing. He wasn't hurting me. But my mind was going back to that Louisiana.
Yeah. Like
tie
you
me
knew,
back
yeah.
up again, lay me down, and the only thing I did was he put me over. But I understood and I had respect for him.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, because it was a lesson taught. You know what I mean? Because, like I said, I although I started at 16, you know, and the wrestling was evolving and everything, I really learned a lot through these guys and Bill Dundee into Tennessee, going into San Antonio. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And everything. But it was Adrian's way of saying, hey, I'm in control of this. You shouldn't have done that to me. You know, it'd be like me going on a promo. They used to do all of 37. You know how they'd be doing. If I go out and did that before they did it, then what would it mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You see what I mean?
Yeah, Adrian.
Now, as a booker, what did you see in Bobby the first time you started booking him? Did you see that? You know,
Bill Dundee was the original. Said to me, you know, once he got Bobby trimmed down, because Bobby was a little
Pudgy guy.
Pillsbury.
Yeah, this boy.
And Billy got him trimmed down, and then he started getting some size in there, and he had fire.
yeah.
His punches were stiff, but he had fire.
I've color flared a couple of years. Sorry about that, mate.
No. Yeah, I'm just joking. I had to get that in. Anyhow, but you had fire, and you wanted it.
I was hungry.
You know, he wanted it. You know what I mean?
And now, did you look at guys like Bobby and say, you know, not right this moment you're going to be a star, but yeah, you see something in them that like they're basically a sponge. You know, you give them a little bit at a time, and you know that they're going to be able to handle it and draw money.
We were changing everything around. When I went into San Antonio, and that Tully was the booker, and it wasn't going anywhere, and the dad says to me and Tully, you know, you want to take it. So that's when I took the book there, and I sat down and shoot some ideas. I said, this is what we do to get over, and that when we went in there, Jonathan and me, and then the night we doing to rip the night that we're going to rip up the thing and put down the toilet, Jonathan had the accident. The Friday night before, no, the Sunday. We did Austin on the Sunday afternoon, and then Monday we're doing the television in the Junction. It's Monday night, right?
That's right.
And Jonathan wasn't there. So I went out there that night, and that's when I did the Joe Blanchard thing and that. And then Tully came out and ran me off, and that's how we started a feud. I started as a single.
Right.
And then I got Butch. Butch had gone home a year and a half before, and then I had Jonathan with me a year and a half, and then Butch had gone home to try and get his marriage back together, which he did. Mm-hmm. And then he came back and he joined me, and then hence Tully bought in. We bought in Captain Redneck to be his partner. To that, and there was Tully, who was a local baby face, and Captain Redneck, who was well-known baby face throughout the country. Mm-hmm. And then Tully walked out on a match in Austin in a full house because he got a bit jealous of Dick. So that's when I put Manny. So we had a Mexican and a redneck.
Which right in San Antonio, yeah, it works out great.
And then underneath I had a kid called Eric Eremy,
yeah,
who I saw a month ago after the twin. I hadn't seen him since Puerto Rico.
Right.
Since 1988.
Wow.
18 Eric since 88.
You're
and
kidding
I saw
me.
him, we met, and he went to a get-together which they had in Nashville just recently, all the people from the 70s.
Wow.
And then he came to my hotel, he took me out to dinner. And he thanked me for, because he became booker too.
Yes.
He became a booker later. Anyhow, I was grooming Eric then, because I saw this kid too. He had an odd looking body, with a long body and short legs.
Yeah.
But he could talk with that real southern drawl, and as a heel he was nasty.
Yeah,
he could be
was
nasty.
great.
Yeah, he could be nasty. So I had him as a single heel. And then I had another guy. He bought another guy, and I put him, and he was in '83. They were the Blondes.
Ken Timms, right?
Ken Timms was originally.
Right.
He bought Pudgy in afterwards.
Yep.
God bless.
Yeah.
Another guy did.
Aldi Hager. Danny Fargo.
Fargo. But he bought
who was a
Ken
Georgetown, Kentucky guy.
Yeah. They're all the crew.
Right.
There was him. I had the whole of that crew, and I had, of course, Tony Falk, who I just saw again.
Yeah.
Tony in 3 territories with me: Florida and Texas and Puerto Rico, and that. I sort of took the same guys. If we drew money, I took them with us everywhere we went.
Yeah.
That's one thing bookers used to do, because the country was broke up into territories. So Luke had a crew of guys that he knew how to draw money with them and put them into situations. He would go, his stuff was fresh, new, and he would go in there and draw money with them.
And it would cycle, like you were saying.
Joe Duke was another guy.
Joe Duke, yeah.
He was
I'll never forget one night in Odessa, I was watching him and Bruiser Brody work, and all of a sudden Bruiser Brody hit him with a chair, and I'm sure he got the sauce, I don't know, but with the ring lights and stuff, the blood just looked like it flowed 15 feet in the air. But you see, that's kind of territory that they had.
Yeah,
it was a blood and guts. People knew that they were going to...
Hospital, Odessa, 300-mile trip, and then we often had to go and get... Butch had to get the top of his head. Manny Fernandez crowned him so many times with the chair there that
Oh yeah.
And then he was working, and Bobby was working. We started a program with him and Eric. And
Yes.
the boys, they knew each other well too. They were two buddies.
Yeah.
From
Yeah,
before.
sure was.
As
The
he told
brother
you about,
team, yeah.
goes to Nick Lewis's
Yeah,
office.
way back.
Bobby,
And,
Bobby's
so they've all
office.
started at that, and that's how they had an angle.
Yeah.
Did you come down to Puerto Rico?
I never did come to Puerto
No.
Rico because here's what happened.
Oh, you got married.
When I got married, but what happened was when I was working in San Antonio, you see, Bill Watts was struggling.
Mhm.
He wasn't drawing anything. And you can tell me if this is not wrong.
No,
He wasn't, he was doing bad business. He went to Memphis to see what he could see up there. He looked around and he seen Bobby Eaton, they
Yep.
wasn't doing nothing with him, Dennis Condrey, Jim Cornette, they wasn't doing anything with him. All these group of
Ricky and
guys,
Robert,
Ricky and
right,
Robert.
yeah.
Well, they went down there. Well, then when they went down to Louisiana, Jerry Jarrett, Eddie Marlin, and said, "You took all of our good talent." So what happened was when I was in San Antonio, we worked a series of scaffold matches because Bill had called me to become the Fantastics with Tommy Rogers in Louisiana.
Yeah.
Okay, this is where
I
this
was
is going to
going-
be my next question. Yeah.
I had actually got an offer from Carlos, which I've been going
Right.
around for years, and he took me back down there to book then. So I moved from Joe, and I did that. Sorry, Bobby, cut you
No,
off
you're
here,
fine.
but this is a mistake. I should have turned babyface and had a
In-
3 month run.
In San Antonio.
Yeah, 3 months run as a babyface before I left there. Because you know when you get so hot as heels, when you have someone F you up and you turn on them, and the people want you to do a job on them, you heel, you don't change style.
Well,
Right,
here's
yeah,
what I was getting ready to say was, you're exactly right, Luke, and I think you're exactly right, and I think you would have drew money as those type of baby faces,
Well,
those.
Texas love that.
Because
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you why. Because these guys had wrestled and beat everybody. The Road Warriors, they brought the Fabulous Ones to San Antonio. They brought them all. Is that not
The
right?
Blue Express people.
Everybody.
Yeah,
Dusty and Blackjack Mulligan.
Wow.
They
okay,
brought
to
them
Texas,
all.
yeah.
So it would have been the perfect thing, like you said, to have reversed the
We
role.
didn't get beaten by them all, but we beat the.
I know,
we
but
beat
what
them
I'm
up
saying
and
is-
and we had them
Yeah.
all there.
The people believed that the sheep herders was it as
Yeah.
far as, although they were heels and hated, they knew when the sheep herders wrestled it was going to be a bloody fight, right?
Yeah.
Hey, do you believe that you would have been? See, I remember when you guys go to the WWF and seeing you guys as babyface, it blew my mind. I'm like, these guys now. I used to boo you at the Philadelphia Civic Center every month.
And that nobody believed us. A lot of people said that's not the sheep herders.
Right, because
They
it was
couldn't
so
believe
different.
They couldn't believe it was.
But
And
if you
then
were kick-ass guys,
a lot of people said, "How can you do that? How can you go from that to comedy?" I said, "That's easy. NWA is wrestling.
Right. This is entertainment.
Yeah.
Now you go
Yeah.
to WWF, you become a celebrity."
yeah,
And that's
no, yeah, right.
Exactly right. Money talks.
Yeah.
The rest
Yeah,
of it
but
walks.
go back to where we are and that. Back there, that was one of my. There's a few mistakes I made in my.
When
two
hindsight's
major runs.
20/20.
Having the babyface
that's-
runs.
yeah.
I thought that would have been good for you guys too, because like I said, you had fought everybody, you had wrestled everybody, beat everybody, and Tennessee was famous for that because Jerry Lawler, he was as big heel for years,
Yeah.
became a big baby face. Bill Dundee was a heel, was a baby face. Dutch Mantell, I'm just talking about Tennessee.
Yeah.
Most of the times when they turned, it was
And
their
I had
lot.
built up a hill. I had built up another hill team underneath us, who would come and help us.
Right.
Was Eric and
Right.
Punchy.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly
so there
right.
was there was
You
the
could have
two,
turned against them.
but I got offered that money down in Puerto Rico to come and of course that's when I went down there. We did the biggest house ever in Puerto Rico.
Sure.
We did the Brody
Yeah.
and Hanson against Abby, and we set that up in Texas.
Right,
We had
right.
Abby in a house in Texas, and Carlos knocking on the door. We set the whole thing up, and that was the biggest house at the time. We did in the ballpark for Roberto Clemente, 25,000 people.
That picture is still. I haven't been down there a couple of years, but that picture is still up in the WWC office of the ballpark.
And I went to the casino and blew over 100,000 that night.
Yeah.
at the casino.
Shit.
That's something. But going back to me leaving San Antonio,
Yeah.
Bill Watts then needed a team to fill in while he sent him back to Tennessee because he had sent with the exchange, Rick Rude, Jim Neidhart, and all these guys went to Tennessee who Jerry Jarrett and them said they're not ready to draw us money. We need those guys. We need some of those guys back. At least give us the Rock and Roll Express back. So we went back.
Because the Fabulous Ones had been gone, right?
Yes,
yeah,
they had went
Ricky
to
Robert done the
Minnesota.
interview. Yep, they went to
And what happened was then we became a team there. Well, when the Rock and Roll Express was coming back, because we were just going to fill in so long, they said, "Would you want to go to Florida or would you want to go to Dallas?" To Tommy and I. And Tommy was from Florida, but I said, "Well, Dallas is the shorter move, because you know how it was moving and
bigger money too. Dallas is bigger money.
And so we went and worked a few shots for Eddie Graham and them, but then we went on over to work in Dallas where we started.
Before you started full time for
for Watts, right?
Watts.
Yes.
Is that the first time you meet Tommy, or did
I
you
met
know
him
Tommy?
in Tennessee when he was part of the Jerry Lawler crew, I think, in Tennessee, because like Luke said, there was tons of guys that Jerry was bringing in himself, and I think Tommy was part of that crew apparently, because when the book changed there, Tommy was working in the Tennessee territory, and at one point, even before that, me and Terry Taylor was actually the first Fantastics.
That was a question.
And the thing of it was, what they did was they sent here. The Georgia Championship Wrestling wasn't drawn in Georgia anymore, but they were drawn in Ohio and drawn in West Virginia, Michigan.
Yes, Cantons.
So they sent. So somehow Ole or Jim Barnett or somebody made a deal with Jerry Jarrett to send a crew down there, which was Norman Frederick Charles III, King Carl Fergie.
Yeah.
Ken Wayne was called the Stray Cat. Coco Ware was Sweet Brown, just a bunch of things.
Brown Sugar.
And me and Terry Taylor were the Fantastic Ones there. And what was so funny was, and I'll tell you guys, the Road Warriors was hot and they were killing people. And I'll never forget, we were working that little territory in Georgia, and all of a sudden, I'd worked underneath. I was a loyal soldier, I guess you'd say. If you tell me to do this, I'm going to do that. And me and Terry Taylor's working down there, and all of a sudden, Bill Dundee says, little towns are starting to come up a little bit. As a matter of fact, a guy named Marty Lundy's working on our shows with us.
Wow.
I don't know if you know that guy or not, or ever heard of him. But what happened was, our little Brett Sawyer was starting to come up a little bit, and they said, you guys are working in the Omni. Terry, you and Bobby are, and Steve-O was also there. I don't know if you remember him.
Yeah, Steve-O.
Yeah, Ozanowski.
Well,
what happened was, they said,
Minnesota.
you guys are working the Road Warriors in the Omni in Atlanta. Now, Bill Dundee comes to me, he says, Bobby, if they beat you guys in Omni, our little thing we're going to do here's dead. He said, here's what happens. Here's what happens. They come to Terry Taylor and I and said, you're going to put, the Road Warriors are just fresh and they're killing everybody. And here I am, 195 pounds, I look like that, and I'm sitting there, 5'9", and they said, we need you to put them over. I said, I can't do that.
Oh. Now,
because my boss.
Who says that to you?
Ole Anderson.
Yeah.
Says,
who's not a nice guy to begin with, right?
At the Omni in Atlanta, he says, we need, and my boss, Bill Dundee, had done told me, you can't put them guys over.
Right.
You put them over. Everything we're trying to build around here is dead. We had threw Jimmy Cornette. We took Tennessee there as face in a cake, and I mean,
The birthday party,
and Adrian Street was there because Ole Anderson was going berserk. He hated at the time, Adrian, I can't believe you got a guy skipping around, Ole. So I go to the Omni that night, and they said, okay, we need you guys to put the Road Warriors over. I said, I can't do that, sir. I'm not going to put them over. So
what did he say?
They start thinking fast. Well, I don't know. He said, you're not. I think he's in shock. Because number one,
does he try to intimidate you? Or?
I mean, he's just kind of like, you're not. I said, no. Well, I'm not putting them over. I'm not going to do it. I've been told not to, and I'm not going to.
You told him you've been told not to.
That's right. I'm not going to do it. So all of a sudden, they're trying to think fast what to do. So what they do that night is this. They go and they have the they have me go out in their match earlier that night and stooge off a heel finish, and they post me and I get colored and I'm taken out. They put Steve Ozanowski and Terry Taylor in a tag match and they put them over. But now years later, me and Tommy's riding and we're working for WCW and Joe's sitting up front and I'm sitting in the back. and we're driving, you know, making a town. He said, yeah, and I'll tell you something else, Tommy. Your partner back there wouldn't even put us over years ago.
So he remembered, right?
I mean, you know, it's funny, but you know,
Did
when
you
you
tell
were
why?
when you were told something, you're told something. I didn't really tell Ole Anderson why. I just said.
Did you tell?
I can't remember now.
Joe,
I can't remember.
Joe.
I think I probably laughed it off. But I mean, you know. But the thing of it was, because you had to do what you were told.
Right.
It was mind over matter. If you didn't mind, you didn't matter.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying? There's other guys that was ready to do that position. But needless to say, about 3 weeks later, they canceled us all out of all the towns, sent us back home to Tennessee, and that was it for that.
A year later, Joe does that to the Fabulous Ones, if you remember right. Where Vern wanted them to drop the belts to the
That's right, I
Fabulous
heard
Ones,
about that.
and he said, "No way." You
Yeah,
know?
that's exactly right.
Not doing it.
I heard that, but
Might have learned it from you.
Yeah, he learned that trick from me, a
Yeah,
young
but
punk.
you know, if you know the two of them well,
Yeah.
it's like I know the two of them, Joe and Mike. Well, you know, Mike would have, Joe no.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the thing of it was, the only reason why I did that was because my boss told
Told
me
you to.
if you guys get beat by them as a team, anything, well, you know how it is, Luke.
Yeah.
The things that we were trying to do around Georgia was
Georgia TV
was strong.
It was nationwide.
It was.
WTBS.
Yeah.
And you know, a lot of people don't realize this. Just going back this, people don't realize that you went to Georgia. Well, even like you said, you brought the Road Warriors from Georgia TV to San Antonio.
Yeah.
And that was hot television back then. People at 6:05 on Saturday,
Yeah.
man, they were watching wrestling.
Everyone I bought from Charlotte.
Yeah.
See, because the TBS I worked at, I started working at TBS in 1980.
Right, right.
You know, on TBS we had the pacifiers, the Mid-Atlantic belts. Snooker and
You're right.
Snooker and Ray had the world belts.
Right.
And they put the pacifier belts on us.
Right.
And we were main event in one of the towns every night, but we weren't making what the other guys were making. You know what I mean?
Right,
Yeah.
right.
They were doing 3 towns a night at the time.
Oh, yeah.
You know, that's when they done the big angle of 79 there. It was Flair and Blackjack and all that, so the territory's hot.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I went to Puerto Rico then, and that, not knowing that at the time I wasn't into the politics of the business, and as I learned later, and
See, yeah,
I was on TBS. You see, I was on TBS, but not knowing that TBS was covering the country.
Oh,
It was
yeah.
WTBS then.
Yeah,
you're right.
and not
The
knowing.
superstation,
So
yeah.
when they told me I was doing 3,000 to 3,500 miles a week in the gym every day,
right.
I was running like a dog on the road. We were making good money, but then Carlos calls me up and he says, the WWC in Puerto Rico, he says, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 2 shows on Sunday. That's all you work. And the money was the same.
Yeah.
So where am I going
In
to
the
go?
beach.
Sure.
Yeah, on the beach. Yeah.
But
In Puerto
not
Rico.
knowing that I'm cut off. Puerto Rican TV is only seen in New York those days. And I'm cut off and I'm leaving a spot. I've got the belt on WCW. I'm working against Rocky Johnson, Rock's dad,
Right, right.
and the missing link.
Right, Dewey
Rob-
Roberts.
yeah.
Dewey Robinson, as Dewey Robinson.
Yeah.
We're working against them, we're working against names
Right.
and that, but we
But
threw
you were
it in.
more
So
regionalized.
that was my first mistake.
Sure,
Then I'll
sure.
tell-
Instead of the
then when we
exposure.
get to the Watson's territory in a minute, with
Yeah.
our feud, we'll tell you my second mistake.
Okay. Now, Bill Dundee comes up with the idea of putting you and Tommy together.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I think, Bill Dundee and Bill Watts
Mhm.
had decided to put Tommy and I together. Tommy was working, he was Buzz Sawyer's buddy. Remember
Right.
Mad Dog Buzz Sawyer?
Brett Sawyer,
He-
yeah.
And Brett Sawyer, and he had worked territories and stuff around with them. So Tommy and I got put together. We knew each other in Tennessee, worked single matches. He was always a junior heavyweight type wrestler, and when I came in for Luke, I was a junior heavyweight then.
Yeah.
I was a junior heavyweight then. And so they put us together there in Louisiana the first time, and worked there, and then, like I said, ended up going to world class and everything.
Now, who comes up with all the gimmicks?
Well,
the jacket, the
keep,
bow tie.
keep in mind, the Fabulous One had been hot in Tennessee.
Yes.
Terry Taylor and I had did it for that short run into Georgia.
Right.
So it was natural that I still had the tux and stuff.
Right.
So I think we called Terry Taylor, and Tommy bought his other tux, and the Rock and Roll Express had a couple sets of blue tuxes and
Yeah.
sold us that. But Tommy didn't want to wear the top hat, and Tommy was more of a wrestler.
Yeah.
He didn't want to do the strutting. He didn't want to do the shaking. He didn't want to do all that. He was more into the
Wrestler.
technique.
Yeah.
Wrestler. Yeah, I want a pair of boots and tights. I think, as a matter of fact, he grew up in Florida with
And
Jack.
of course, he was the body.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
He was
yeah.
the body.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
Especially in a time when the cut muscle wasn't the huge thing that you
And
see
he
on
was.
WWE
He was
all the
cut
time.
up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he was. Yeah, and he
He's
looked
high
great,
flyer.
and he was great. He threw one of the best drop kicks,
Yeah.
if not the best, in the wrestling business.
So you were more the entertainer. you
Yeah,
know,
I was more the entertainer of the wrestling. I worked hard.
Yeah.
I think one of my biggest things was an attribute for me that I worked hard, and like Luke said, I was hungry, and I loved the wrestling business.
Yeah.
And you know what, Steve? Back then, we wasn't allowed to be allowed to love the wrestling business.
It was just business.
You wasn't allowed to like it. You wasn't allowed to appreciate it. You know, if I went to him and said, "Man, I really like you guys," I mean, you could say that was a great match. But if I said, "Man, I really like that," then you were considered a mark.
Really?
They'd call you a mark. What are you, a mark?
What is
Was
that
that
like?
not true, Luke?
Yeah, right.
Is that because everybody had to be a tough guy and it was
No,
only
no,
about
no,
dollars?
but
you
you-
couldn't love what you did, or
Well, the thing
was
of
it
it
just a big
was,
secret?
and even just like Harley Race and guys like that, later on I seen him at a thing, I said, "Man, I always enjoyed watching you wrestle." I couldn't tell him that then because they'd say, "Are you a mark or something?"
Yeah.
In the dressing room, is that not true?
True.
And so a lot of guys that really love the wrestling business, I mean, couldn't really show that part of it. I mean, we could say, "Man, I'm watching you guys' matches, man, they're great." But as far as saying, being a mark, you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, you can't break it down and be like,
Yeah.
"Oh, I loved when you came back here."
Yeah, I mean, not just that, but I mean,
Stuff we
being
do
a mark,
now,
being
yeah.
a mark,
Yeah.
being a mark.
I'm gonna run you off back. So
Yeah.
you were at the Fabulous Ones. You were the Fantastics before you went to
Before I went to Louisiana.
Go to Dallas.
No. You went to Louisiana. They put you together.
Yes.
As the Fabulous Ones.
As the Fantastics.
And then you went to Dallas.
Dallas is the Fantastics, and we worked there.
And then Bill put you together as the Fantastics?
Yeah, Bill put us together as the Fantastics, and we went to Dallas. Now, keep in mind, it was mostly the Von Erichs
Yeah.
and Chris Adams, of course.
Yeah.
For some reason, we got over pretty good in Dallas. I mean, I kind of knew we had
Ken Mantell?
Yeah,
Yes.
Ken Mantell. I kind of knew we had arrived because there was the Von Erichs, and then there was me and Tommy's picture on the shirt.
Oh, nice.
And I
okay.
kind of thought, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And man, that must mean something because
You're
the Von
selling
Erichs.
you're selling product.
Yeah, the Von Erichs, now there's Bobby and Tommy over here with them. And I mean, then things started happening in that territory, which was horrible,
Yeah,
with people
yeah,
dying,
tragedies.
and this and that and everything. But they had like big shows, and it was like, even when I was there, when Tommy and I was there the first time, people drive limos to the shows. I mean, it was the thing. Dallas was hot. Well, you know what I'm
I
saying?
remember when David, I shouldn't bring, this is a bad one, because they used this wrong.
The-
You know,
they
they
do the
benefited
Texas
from
Stadium.
it.
Yeah.
They did that. They did, before the Texas Stadium, they did a backyard thing with the mum and dad in the swing. You know, those
Right.
the double seats in the swing,
Yeah.
and that they sing there, and all the kids in the backyard, and then they get interviewed, and they said, you know, David's gone, blah 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 blah, and we know he's up in heaven. And then the dad says he put one of the kids, Lance, or one of the kids who looked like David.
It was Mike who got toxic shock syndrome
right.
later.
He said, but this is the guy. Actually, this is the new David. It's replacing David.
Oh.
And then they did the thing, the God and that. The whole thing was like a church service thing to draw the show for Texas A&M.
Yeah.
We all
For that
looked at
show.
that. It was a religious thing where the dad sort of used the church to draw to, and that we said, you know, he went overboard a bit there. You know what I mean?
Now, was that something like guys in the industry kind of
Yeah,
like
and
were
like-
like, ah, yeah,
He had
in bad taste?
They had a white horse with David riding the white horse
Yeah.
with wings and all that in it.
Yeah, but even later on, much later, and I'll go back to this real quick. After we had done Louisiana, we were in a match in an 8-man tag. It was me, Bruiser Brody, Tommy, and some other babyface. and we were in Fort Worth, and it was Kevin and a couple other. Kevin was our babyface partner. Kevin, Bruiser Brody, and Tommy and I in a 8-man tag. And Bruiser Brody and us are standing on the apron of the ring, and we're saying, "You don't even know we're here." So all of a sudden, they're working, and it's Black Bart, and I can't even remember all the guys, and maybe Rock and Roll RPMs, a couple other guys.
Yeah.
They shoot Kevin in the corner. Well, Kevin hits the corner, and back then, a babyface, he would show fire like this. Well, he kind of went like this and looked up, and his hands kind of went like this, and he started falling and crumpled in the corner. Well, we panicked. All of a sudden, people started snapping pictures because at that time, David had died, Mike had died. When we were there, Mike had zipped himself up into, and now here's Kevin crumpling in the corner. I grabbed the mic. Bruiser Brody's grabbing people's cameras, smashing them. I mean, because back then, Von Erichs was like, they were celebrities. They were big news.
Yeah.
They had
Brody was there when David died, right? He was at the hotel.
And the thing of it was, what people don't understand was that, you see, part of the reason why they were over, Luke, is because Fritz had talked about them kids their whole lives.
Yeah.
So they've been pushed for 15 years before they even got in the business, more or less. But I grabbed the microphone and I said, we need somebody to help us. Because Kevin had started shaking, and I think he might have peed himself. And Tommy Rogers started giving him mouth to mouth in the ring because he had started turning purple, almost blue. And
is this when he died?
In the ring, Kevin, he's alive today.
Yeah.
But I'm saying in the ring, this is what happened that day that whatever happened. Tommy started I started saying, please, somebody, please. I'm on a microphone in Fort Worth saying, please, somebody, please come help us. And Brody's tearing cameras up, smashing them, people's taking pictures. And finally, whatever, so they must get somebody, take him out. They said he ended up having like something, I don't know what it was.
Post-concussion syndrome.
That
was the
thing that they said, post-concussion. But as a matter of fact, Fritz went to Tommy, and it's quite known. He went, hey, thanks, man. This is Fritz to Tommy. Thanks, but he really didn't need it.
Wow, because he wanted him the sympathy?
I don't know what it was.
His kid's above, he would have come
He would have
Supermaned up.
Yeah, but man, Tommy gave him mouth to mouth. And he was turning blue, and he was all crumpled up. He's like, we thought he was making like a comeback. You know how you hit the counter, you're like, and he just crumpled like this and went down.
Now, do you know why, or did you know?
Well, you said why.
What? But was that the real reason?
I don't know.
Okay.
I heard that when Fritz found out about his kids, how they were, it was such a shock.
Yeah.
That's how the whole family, the wife, and it went downhill, because everything, his kids were the killers,
Yeah.
Nothing could put them down.
Well, do you think he was just in denial? Just like
Yes.
in denial, or he didn't want to see it?
There. I didn't work for
Fritz. He might have been in denial, and I know some people said he blamed Gary Hart a lot about a lot of things.
Yeah.
But people, now let's say for example, here's what would happen. We would work in Laredo.
Yeah.
We would work for an hour, waiting on the Von Erichs to get there. Meanwhile, they had went to another L town. Like maybe say for example, we'd be in San Angelo wrestling. Well, they'd go to San Antonio.
Waco, and there's another road. What's the one just down the road from Waco?
It's a Temple.
Temple. We were in Waco. They were in Temple. I've got Kerry in our dressing room doing his boots up.
In the opposite territory.
Different territory.
He's
Joe
for
Blanchard's
Joe
territory.
Blanchard's.
Yeah.
And here's what happened with that show. Now here's what happened because a friend of mine told me this. Here's the story. Temple, Joe Cagle, he worked in the territory in San Antonio. You remember?
Yeah.
He was at Temple. When you guys were in Waco, he was in Temple. The parking lot was packed. No ring, no nothing, no Von Erichs. So a week later, the Von Erichs show up because they got a show scheduled, but nobody hardly shows up. They said, what happened? He said, well, 2 weeks ago, you guys were supposed to be here and nobody showed up, the ring or nothing, but they'd been at your show.
Yeah.
Wow. When that happened, did anybody, did you look at your paper and be like, man, Joe, did you tell me Kerry was starting tonight? Or I've always heard, I met Kerry as a fan before he passed, but I've always heard he was a great guy,
Hey,
but he was
the nicest people you'd ever want to meet.
Yeah.
Never met a stranger. Never met a stranger. I mean, they were the nicest people, humble. Even Kevin and them were good guys. And it broke my heart. I heard Kevin do an interview. He said, the one thing about it is, He said, I was an older brother. He said, but now I'm not even a brother. That's painful.
Yeah.
Jack Victory told me a story once that him and John
What
Tatum.
a great hand. Jack Victory was with you guys too.
Yeah.
When we did our thing.
Yeah. I'm going to get to that in a little bit.
Maxine.
He says say hello, by the way.
Yeah.
He told me a story once, and
He's
we'll
got
get
a
back to the thing.
cauliflower ear too.
I wasn't going to say that. But him and Tatum were at an airport.
Yeah.
Here comes Kevin, bare feet.
Yeah.
Just
Sunglasses.
gone. Yeah. And he looks at them and goes, you guys look like wrestlers. He goes, man. He goes, look at you guys with the size and the hair. He's like,
They were working in the territory, right?
he goes, I'm Kevin Von Erich. He shakes both their hands and then he walks and he goes, I go, well, that was cool. Like he introduced himself. He goes, we just worked with him for the last 2 weeks. He's like, he goes, he kept waiting for him to laugh, but I guess he went like a couple gates later, and then finally somebody had to be like, Kevin, you're on this plane. He's like,
Yeah.
all right, man. Yeah, it just, aloof to it. But
Yeah.
so, how long do you guys stay? How long do you and Tommy stay in world
We
class?
stayed a
before
while,
shooting
and
back?
we stayed a while in world class. Then I think at that point we went to Tennessee for a little while because Bill went to Tennessee. Then Kim Mantell and the UWF starts.
Right.
And Kim Mantell calls us to come.
Now I'm going to tell you the story about that. I'm in Puerto Rico. Billy calls me and he says, I'm going back to Tennessee.
Yeah.
And then I got Bill Watts on the phone here. We want you to come in here as the booker.
Yeah.
And that. So I give Puerto Rico, they had a big run in Puerto Rico, and I know I can't do babyface there.
Right.
The office does. Then the top babyface is the office.
Yes.
Yeah,
And
Carlos.
it's still ours.
Carlos,
It's still ours.
Invader,
Jamaica. And Jamaica, right? So I take the job. I said I'm coming in. When I got there, and that they said, we've got Dickie Slater as the booker here now, and I said, where did you finish it? Oh no, we just telling them to stand down, and you're taking over. And I says, I got to think about that. So I gave him 2 weeks. The phone would be going. It'd be Grizz or what's his name?
Jack Curtis.
One of the office.
Yeah, Jack Curtis.
Yeah, they says, and then I says, well, aren't you giving him his notice? And they said, no, he's in the program, and that we just got to get him to stand down, and that's why I never took that job. That's my big mistake in my life, because the money to be made in that territory, you know what I mean, as a booker,
Right.
a flat wage and a booking wage,
Right.
and I let myself, because I know Dickie from Florida, you
Right.
know what I mean, and Dickie, and he's a hell of a guy,
Sure.
not he's bad now, sad is a sad thing now.
Yeah.
He's in a wheelchair and he's drugged up and that, but there you are. And then I never took that spot, so we're working, we come in, we do the same thing. They had a tag team, they had a couple of black guys there. What are they called now? Black tag team.
Was it PYTs? Pretty young things? Coco and Norvell? Was it?
Yeah.
No, it was two other guys.
Pork Chop
Pork
Cash
Chop, yeah.
and Mad Dog.
Yeah.
The Blues Brothers from Memphis.
And
From
I think
Memphis.
they're getting a big push.
Yeah.
Well, I gave them a big push to get them ready for us to slaughter them.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
We came in and we didn't even let them get in the ring. They couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
They came
Pork
out
chop
and that,
and
they pushed them, and they were very upset. And I said, well, they told us, we told them what we do, and they put us, instead of giving us jobbers straight away, they'd be
Put you
pushing
right
this
up.
team,
Yeah.
they'd be pushing this team. And I don't think if they got in the ring, we went right around the territory with them. As soon as they came, we were out first when they came to the ring, and then we attacked them and blah blah blah. And I felt bad for them because they didn't get told that this is what the office wanted.
Right.
Now, were they
and-
mad at you guys, or
Oh,
were
yeah,
they mad
yeah,
at
they-
or
they-
like
and,
Dick?
and what you got to think about too, in Louisiana, the TV was bicycled like 6 weeks. So everything, it wasn't just like every week or two. Some things were 6 weeks behind, right, Luke?
Yeah.
So you would have to just keep doing it over and over and over
Yeah,
again because
yeah.
just to catch up with the television.
Exactly.
Anyhow, that's what we did in that, and then we did the same BS
Yeah.
that we did everywhere, but we didn't. I don't think we beat anyone up. They didn't have anyone for us to lay out. They didn't have anyone to lay out and that, and then we worked with Ted and
Doc.
Doc and took the belts off them.
Yep.
And then that's when they bought these guys. And well, I talked to them and I said, you know, we work with the Rock and Roll Express, and I said, and then the other team, and I said, well, they're a spin-off of that, and I know them. So then they bought them back.
We came in and worked
So we
together.
came back, and we were straight together and we started doing our little program, little program. But that's when he bought it. I didn't take the book, so he bought in Ken, and then Ken bought the Freebirds in.
Yes.
And they tried to push us off to the side. Not off to the side.
But what happened
A little
was
lower.
they had the first or second Crockett Cup there at that show, and as a matter of fact, as far as fans or people's concerned, they had every top tag team in the country and the nation there. But I've had people tell me even today that the match that we had with these guys stole the show, and
You know, that is means that was in the 80s, that decade. That was one of the top 10 tag matches of the decade. He wrote it up.
ain't that
The
something?
Crockett Cup.
Yeah, and I had a guy tell me, as a matter of fact, he is from New York, and you know, guys were used to great big guys, and he said, he told me this a couple years ago, he said, I was at the Superdome and you was standing back there kind of watching the matches, and I thought, is that guy a wrestler? You know, because he's used to seeing the big giant guys. He said, then you guys went out there and worked against the sheep herders, and he said, man, you guys stole the whole show from everybody. And that was back then when every top team was there.
Yeah.
And it wasn't not because of us, but it was because of these guys and the experience they had. They knew how to make someone look good.
We went 30 minutes there, and anyhow. One day, did you ever see that on the YouTube?
I have, yeah. Oh, it's on YouTube?
Yeah, it's the Crockett Cup. No, it was in 86.
86, yeah, the first one.
Yeah, in 86, and they DQ'd us out of it. They put
Yeah,
Road Warriors
both of
over.
us.
Yeah.
We were the last semi-final.
And that set our angle up for the Louisiana
Now, is that the
territory
first time that you guys wrestled each
Yes,
other? Was it at the Crockett Cup?
No,
Wow.
it wasn't. The Crockett Cup wasn't the first day. We worked beforehand. We are in Louisiana.
A little bit,
Yeah,
but it built up to that thing, and that's where the big angle was shot. Yeah.
because that was all the Crockett Cup was all the territories around the states.
Yeah.
All the tag teams coming for that.
That's why I said it was every top tag team. I mean, it was the Tully and Arn, it was Giant Baba, it was all the top guys.
Oh,
It
yeah,
wasn't
Japan,
even
yeah,
Ken.
Baba,
Everybody
Tiger
came in. It was a big deal, and it was at the Superdome in New Orleans. But then that's where the angle was shot, and then the thing started with us in Louisiana there.
And then Bill White, we ran doing all kinds of matches, boot camp matches, any match. We
Barbed
didn't
wire.
we didn't do four-way chain matches.
No.
But then one day we did normal barbed wire matches. Then one day, fucking Bill got the idea, Flippin' Bill got the idea. He built a wooden cage.
Yes, he
Right.
did.
With barbed wire.
Barbed wire.
Yeah.
Now, that's where you guys brought Jack Victory and Terry Taylor in, right? Is
Well,
it the
what
six-man?
happened was, see, Jack and Lady Maxine,
Yeah.
remember, went out to the ring with them. Jack was what they would do, and they later did it with John Laurinaitis over in, Johnny Ace over in,
Florida.
But also from Atlanta, WCW. They used an American guy to carry the flag.
Flag bearer.
And that was
Yeah.
part of the,
We always took American guy and that territories, not so much in Joe Blanchard's territory. But, we did. Eric carried quite a bit, and that's
Bobby
how we got
Jaggers
him.
did it for
Yeah,
a while.
that's how we got
Yeah.
him. That's because we used to get American guy to say, I've never had so many victories till I have carried the flag, and then denounce America.
Yeah.
Sure.
And say, I class myself as a Kiwi, a New Zealander. Anyhow, we had Lady Maxine and Jack Victory there,
At
and
ringside.
that Rocket Cup. And that's when we started. Anyhow, getting back to that, he built the cage, the barbed wire cage, and we did 37 barbed wire cage matches in about 45 days.
Wow.
He did
Wow.
every
because I
town.
said the TV was 6 weeks
Yeah,
behind.
so you had to.
It was about,
We went over the whole. We had staph infection.
Yeah.
I about died.
Yeah.
I about died.
They were,
Yeah, how do you do that? How do you do that every
It
night?
was-
Every night.
Of course,
was-
the barbed wire going into your skin.
Yeah.
If your skin, you had to carry alcohol and
It
wash
was
it.
9 times a week in 9 different cities.
Oh.
Because we would work sometimes 2 times on Saturday, 2 times on Sunday.
Yeah.
Now, what's your mindset after a while? It's like, damn, this again?
Butcher, we
Or
walked out.
Huh?
Butch and me walked out.
Okay.
Yeah, we walked out at the end of it. We didn't even tell these guys and that because we got our paychecks.
Sure.
And that, and we knew what, Ted had already gone now. There was Doc still in the territory. Jake had gone.
I think
Yeah, he was gone, yeah.
Yeah.
Junkyard Dog is gone.
Yeah.
All those
So it
guys
was like
is
the
gone.
Freebirds were still there.
No,
yeah.
Freebirds,
Doc.
we knew what Freebirds were making, and then we had an idea what Freebirds, because they were Kenny's boys,
Yeah.
and we would main event every night,
Right.
and we knew that these guys were making
More.
maybe a grand more than us.
Yeah.
Because arenas, they're big arenas. I'm not saying they were sold out, but they're pretty every night. 3/4 to
Yeah, it was
full,
good. It was
3/4 to
good.
full.
Their business was good.
Now, did you notice that, like, from the beginning?
Hold on just a second.
Yep.
In UWF, he started going nationwide with it. And people started, we were going and traveling. I remember eventually we would drive 750 miles one way. Because Bill started going out and running all these other different places. and
Oklahoma
stuff
City.
like that.
Yeah.
We
And those
drove
were
3,000 and 4,000 miles a
On the
week.
2-lane highways,
Yeah,
too.
2
Yeah,
lane.
right? That's
People-
everybody says
John
that.
Tatum was in a bad accident and got hurt, and it was rough, wasn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
not only was the working when you're working hard,
Yeah.
but then the driving.
Yeah.
You know, you live in Alexandria, you drive to Houston, you drive back home, you drive to this town, that town, this and that. It was really, really rough.
Now, walk me through like what a pay scale would be for the beginning of the feud during the week. You see the houses are pretty good, right? But you notice they're starting to get more. Do you notice it more in the paycheck, and then here come the
Yeah.
barbed wire matches?
Yeah, but
And is it a big bump or is it?
No, I can't remember, mate.
I can't either, honestly.
No.
I can't remember
But it wasn't,
exactly.
we weren't making, I don't know about your check, but my check wasn't what I
But the
should
thing
have
of it was, when you're going through this, it's like a whirlwind.
Mhm.
Because a lot of times, and people will ask you too, and ask you, tell me some exciting times. The whole thing was like a whirlwind.
Yeah.
Because looking back on it now, it's all running so fast, driving, doing the stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, you get in at 4 in the morning, mate, and then you get about 5 or 6 hours sleep. You try to get into the gym, and you're in the car again.
Yeah.
Some days you fly, and it was, as he said, it was like, well, what did I take? I was taking speed. I got to say, I think so. I was taking some speed in the day. I never did the stuff. I never did this, but I took speed. And of course, and then when you get off the road and that, some nights you're road tired like that, you have to drop like a sleeping pill or something to get to sleep.
Right.
Oh.
So you got to have something to get you up, something to take you down. Yeah. And
You
do
know, but people thinking now I'm a druggie, but I'm just telling you, today the kids are doing wrong. Today you take something, all these drinks on the shelf today out of the 7-Eleven. You know, you've got Red Bull, you've got, well, how many different Rockstar, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
The 5-hour energy. They're taking all that, and then they take muscle relaxers. The heart's a muscle.
Well, here's what I'm
Those
going to
days
tell you.
those days, just 1 second, Bobby,
Yep.
sorry. Otherwise I've done
No.
that. Yeah, those days I used to take a sleeping pill, which is, it puts your mind to sleep. It doesn't put your muscles to sleep.
Yeah.
Today, all these deaths, I'm sorry, but I'm saying it, they're taking muscle relaxers.
The somas and
You're taking something to speed you up, then you put something to slow your heart's a muscle, hence air, the brake, and pulling it back. How long can your heart take
Yeah.
it?
Well, I promoted boxing, the tough man competitions in North and South Carolina for about 15 years.
That's why he looks like he does.
Yeah, that's right. I was the promoter though. See, I finally got smart after I watched Bill Watson, all of them, count the money. I realized that the money wasn't in the ring, but it was out of it. But the thing of it was, doctors was telling me this. What these young people don't understand, drinking these Red Bulls, they get their blood pressure checked to sky high.
Yeah.
What it's causing now is also, Luke, is underlying heart problems that would perhaps been in their 50s or their 60s because they're drinking all these products. I don't want to say that because they'll probably say, well, I'm not a doctor, I'll say that. But they're saying that
we can always
of
just
that,
do this. And
because
makes us
all
legally
that,
clear.
because all that, like you said, is your heart is a muscle.
Yeah.
And people don't realize that. And that's what's happened to a lot of people, and especially doing a lot of stuff like that. Their heart is racing and things, it causes
Everybody's,
problems.
I have a gym now, Clearwaterbeach.org. Anyhow.
What was that again?
Clearwaterfitness.org.
Clearwater Beach.
Clearwater Beach Fitness.
Could
We'll see if we- can we put a thing
B-E-A-C-H.
Yeah.
Jake said we can put something
A
up.
banner, please. Anyhow, and I've got all people coming in, but I deal between Clearwater Beach as retirees. You know, Florida's a gateway to heaven. And these are all retired people. My age is between 30 and 80.
Are you doing the yoga stuff there?
No, but I got TRX straps and all that sort of stuff.
That's
I got
the
5
joke,
trainers there and all that. And I got all these older people there, and they even take stuff before they work out.
Oh,
today.
sure.
They're not
Pre-workout.
Fuel injected.
All that stuff now is in things that I take it before I work out because it opens you up. You get on the bike and that treadmill and you start sweating and then your cardio's running. You get in and you start pumping the weights. So those days everybody was doing it for the ring and that to get up but then as soon as after their match they were taking muscle relaxers
To come
and
down.
how long can your heart go like that?
But on me, I was the other opposite. I was jacked up just naturally because I'll never forget one time I had a tooth problem. I think I broke a tooth off, and the doctor gave me a Percodan. So I took that Percodan. I worked against them guys, and they said, "Man, maybe you need to take more of them. You were so relaxed in the ring." Like, how are you talking about?
Was he jumpy?
I was
Always energized.
energy.
What did I say about those punches before?
Yeah,
But here's what happened. I remember I used to wrestle against Norvell Austin, and he would sit there and say, "Come on here, sit down, talk to me just a little bit." I guess because I was just so hyper. Yeah. He knows. I was just that way, and I guess because I wanted it so bad. You know what I'm saying?
You
But
liked what you were doing.
I loved what I was doing. I was kind of excited about it and this and that, but I'll never forget that match. It was like in Fort Smith, Arkansas, or somewhere. It was afternoon because I came in there probably, and they liked it even more. Like,
If you watch that match that I told you about,
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna watch it tonight.
You'll see that was every night. You'll say, how can you take it? But I work with guys all the time like that. When I started, it was semi-professional. You know?
Yeah.
I had to come
You were
many
used to the
times-
stiff style.
Many times in New Zealand, especially with the Limeys, the English wrestlers, they fold your ear over and whack your ear, and that to try and say you don't look like a wrestler, so you got to claim for ear.
well,
The
see,
Japanese would do that to you too. Yeah.
in the UFC, see, they stole all of our stuff. They got the cauliflower ears and the whole 9 yards.
I had to drain my ear many times with a little blade and kick it, and it just the blood and to get the swelling back. As you can see, this one's out. From that.
I can't tell you how many times in Japan I've had to have it drained. They're like, "No, it's okay. You look like man." I'm like, "No, I don't want it." Yeah,
I don't want
it.
But you know what? What's funny is I'm sitting here looking at Luke Williams' head, and I'm looking at mine. And Terry Taylor told me go that way. Now look at these big gashes I got, and his head looks so smooth.
But see, I was stupid. Like, I don't know if I'm like mentally. I would
Bad subject.
Yeah, I would go this way. Like, what the?
It's wild woman with long toenails.
Apparently mine were
I was just sitting
diagonal.
here looking at Luke, man. He looks like he's 29.
Yeah.
He's just ready to start your
It's
second
Florida.
career.
It's
Is it
Florida.
the Florida air?
You know,
Fresh Florida air?
You know, at these trade shows. I worked for Wizard World. From Honky got me back in the business. You know, I was always in the business, but I was out of the ring for so many years, running a territory. And then Honky got me back in the ring, and I'm at these trade shows, and people are saying to me, "Now look at me, you're not the real shepherd." and I said, look at the photo. This is the real shepherd. And I say to them, "Well, look at this tattoo. Look at that tattoo."
Yeah, I got you. Isn't that funny? That's good.
It's funny. They said to me, they used to say to me, and a lot of older people, especially in Texas and you know in the South.
But you know what? Eddie Marlin explained that to me. Like Tojo, they figured he was 180.
Yeah.
But see, even like me, I was 19 years old. Well, someone was 15 watching me because I've had this happen to me now. Well, I'm 19 and they're 15. Now they're 35 and I'm 38. They said, "Man, you got to be 60 years old."
You see what I get it now. Like, I watched you when I was a kid. I'm like, damn it. You know.
Well, you know what Killer Brooks told me in San Antonio? I said, "Killer Brooks, I used to sit ringside and watch you wrestle." He said, "Bobby Fulton, I've seen you wrestle. You should still be sitting ringside."
You know, I seen Killer the first time since I had him in Puerto Rico, '84. I saw him the first time in 2011 at NWA in Atlanta. What year was that? NWA. You know the NWA thing every year.
Oh yeah, the Legends.
yeah.
Legends, yeah. I don't know
Was
what
that
it was.
211?
Might have been.
Jake, do you know that one? NWA Legends Fest in Atlanta, 2011, 10?
He was a heck of a hand too.
Oh,
he was
yeah.
a solid. He was solid.
2010?
2010.
Yeah. Once he hopped in the ring and that, you know, everything was blanked out. You couldn't talk to Killer. You know, you tried to do that, he was a machine.
Yes, he was,
bang,
buddy.
Bang, bang, bang,
Yep.
bang.
Yep. A lot of guys were, you know,
Machine, yeah.
back then and everything.
But he looked good. When I saw him just recently, it was like maybe 2-3 years ago.
Uh-huh.
Killer looked good.
Yep.
You know, white hair. Well, we all got white hair,
Sure.
but you know
Not
what the
you.
hell? You know, hey, I promote.
Luke
John.
always had the haircut and he had the thing down
Yeah, well,
here.
you know,
Yeah.
right now I haven't got that. The Mr. Spock thing.
Yeah, I remember.
You know, I've got this piece now.
Yeah, I know,
But
it's good.
That's covering the.
I got you, the Fernum.
That's covering the spot.
Yeah.
The thing there because I had chemo and that. So you had a close call.
Oh, did you?
About 1999.
Bless your heart.
2000.
Yeah,
so-
wow.
I didn't even know that.
I don't think a lot of people knew that.
No, I
No, I
didn't.
didn't
No,
know.
no,
Wow.
I didn't have actually chemo. I had Pegatron and all that other stuff, liquid and that stuff. And
So
that.
you're fine now?
Yeah, I was fine.
I understand. You kept
Hey,
your
old
gut
age is a bitch.
Yeah, but it's in the mind too, isn't it?
Yeah, that's
I'm
why I'm
learning that. It
still.
took me years to
That's
learn
why
that.
I'm still running around like I am now because I think I slowed down twice and I lay around and the people I lay around with they're all dead.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you
You
get
know
bored.
what I mean? No, I was on the road still
I know
working.
what you're saying.
I wasn't as busy as I am now.
Sure.
And then, you know,
Keeps your
God
mind
bless
fresh.
them. I mentioned the names, the big names in the business. They were on the top, and the WWF and the NWA, and they're dead now. And that, so I try to keep myself busy all the
Yeah,
time.
that's right. That's right.
I have a question before we go. You guys end up back in the latter parts of the NWA Crockett era, turning into Ted Turner, where it becomes a turn of the whole business and stuff like that. Do you guys believe that you guys could have done another run, the Sheep Herders versus the Fantastics, but Tommy and Bobby as heels, you know?
No, I'll tell you what.
And Sheep Herders as kick-ass
I'll tell you
baby
what.
faces.
I'll tell you what. They put us in Miami Beach in a match with them, and still had the same stuff. I believe we could have had a run with them,
Mm-hmm.
and everything. You see, a lot of people, some people wanted to believe, for whatever reason, that the USA chant is hokey.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to tell you, it's not.
No.
You can take these guys today, and they could be the same killer heels because you see they knew how to do it.
Right.
And it's not hokey. The people in every movie you go to, you know who the good guy is and you know who the bad guy is, and these guys were killers.
Right.
I think it would have went. I can't remember if you guys left and went to Puerto Rico while we were there. But as far as us being heels against you guys, I don't know if the people would have.
Yeah,
bought it.
talking like if you guys didn't go to WWF and it stayed around.
Yeah,
You know, because
did you go straight from there to WWF?
Yeah. because-
No, what happened was this funny, just short story, quick, go and close it.
Yeah.
Closing it and that. You know, I said we walked out and left NWA in
Yeah.
'81 and went to Puerto Rico.
Right.
Dusty came in, and everyone came in. We worked against in Texas
Right.
and in Puerto Rico, and they all said, "We need you back in NWA."
Right.
Crockett would never take us back. He said we walked out on him.
Oh, really?
You don't walk out on Crockett. He gives you.
I understand.
He tells you,
He gives
you know,
you the
finish
notice.
up at Christmas, and I'll bring you back in 2 years' time. Finally, closing the end of the story. We're back in UWF, and Bill Watts gets caught for playing around with Dark Journey. I heard, you know, the story as the story goes.
Bill Watts?
Bill Watts, I heard that was that.
Wow, I never heard
Was
of
that the story?
I don't
You know,
know.
Bill Watts had to get rid of. Bill Watts sold the territory to
Crockett.
Crockett, yeah.
I heard that there was a. This is all hearsay.
Okay, I didn't know
the
that.
hearsay, yeah.
I wasn't
He sold to Crockett, and we were the champions. So Crockett had to take us back.
I got
and
you.
we got back into NWA
Yep.
now.
Yep.
And in '88.
Yep.
Yep.
And '88, And
Johnny Ace became
the
flag bearer.
flag bearer, 87, 88. Yeah, and now we're 87. And now we've got Johnny Ace as our flag bearer, who John Laureatis for you people out there.
Now, they send you to Florida first before bringing you up to Charlotte?
Yeah. And then we're back in Charlotte, blah blah blah, and we're working an angle with Rock and Roll Express.
Right.
And then I got the call from Vinny.
Yeah.
And that was it.
Yeah, because we worked against you guys for a little while there in WCW,
Yeah.
because we worked in Miami Beach and worked, and I thought they were getting ready to do something. But you see, the thing of it was, there was, I think, some other teams there that was kind of jealous of what these guys could do. So, you know,
Politics-wise,
what I'm getting ready to say is there was politics at this time.
Mm-hmm.
and we just shot an angle with Lex Luger and Barry Windham, the Twin Towers,
Right.
and they put it, and all of a sudden it was put in a can.
The reason why is because I'm going to tell you, and I mean, I'm just saying this because I think I heard something in the background. They didn't want them guys to get over. They wanted to say that the USA was hokey. They wanted to say that this thing wouldn't work, but it would.
Yeah,
because
right.
it's natural, man.
And it's stuff that's going to make them money. I never understood,
I told some of them people, I said, well, we was in Chicago in their matches, or what the people's into, and we're in this place. So you can't tell me that won't draw.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
And the funny part is now I'm in the indie industry, and that these indie promoters and I got Bush as my partner before we went home.
Right.
These indie promoters booked us together in the South against Rock and Roll Express.
Right.
The Bushwhackers against Rock and Roll. And I say to them, you just put names on paper. You don't look at them. When I booked stuff, I booked it to see, to give them a good match.
Yeah.
And these promoters, oh no, you have a good match. They don't understand.
Right.
You know, we go out there with the Rock and Roll Express, especially in the Carolinas. They loved them, but then Vince's TV was so strong.
They loved you guys, yeah.
You know,
to a lot of those fans, you guys were the Bushwhackers, not the Sheepbreakers.
I don't understand that.
Yeah.
But I have Ricky Morton as my partner in Georgia, somewhere in North Carolina,
Right.
in 2 weeks' time.
That's right. Is that in the 30th?
Yeah, somewhere.
Is that Russell Cade? Yeah, I'm on that, yeah.
Yeah, I have him as my
We're
partner.
all on that, aren't we?
No,
Yeah, the
30th
whole room
what?
is on that.
Yeah. Where's that?
Yeah.
Winston-Salem?
Winston-Salem, North Carolina.
No, I'm not on that, mate.
Oh,
Somewhere else.
You're in Mississippi, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm working for.
But here's the thing. It's like I said, the wrestling stuff. Here's one thing I want to say about the future of wrestling. The concept's never changed. People try to change it. It's a good guy against a bad guy, and that's like movies and everything else. And as long as we give them that, then that's what the people will buy. And it's personal issues, isn't it? Like he said, shoving the mat down the toilet.
And that's where Vince doesn't worry about that now anymore, because they're all covered. You know, they're all great athletes, great bodies, but they're all being trained by the same people. And God bless them, they can't help it. They've got the break. He puts them on television, so they're seen around the world to sell merchandise.
It's Ringling
exactly.
Brothers.
Yeah, exactly.
His merchandising is that internet thing. When you look at the Wall Street and you see what sells every quarter, from the quarter of the year before, the same quarter, it's up, and that's through marketing.
Yeah.
Because they're marketing.
And he's a genius,
genius
yeah,
marketer.
And then another thing is, it can't be like years ago when the guy would go to the promoter, hey man, I'm pretty hot, you're gonna have to pay me a little bit more to make that big show. Now it's just the WWE's coming to town.
It's the brand name now.
Yeah, the brand. They built the brand.
Don't even have to sell matches.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, I'd like to thank both of you for coming on. It was a lot of fun. I always love this because, you know, being a fan of wrestling all my life, and then 20 years of doing it, I get to sit here and listen to you guys talk and find out stuff that I've always wanted to know. But yeah, thank you very much, and
it's great to be here.
Yeah.
And to be with my old mate Bobby after all those years.
You know, people would never think that they would see us shaking hands. As a matter of fact,
Long as we're not shaking glands.
I like that. And what I was going to say is this: people today are still talking about that because I just did the Wrestle Fest in Charlotte. People came from Louisiana and talked about the sheep herders and the matches and the blood and the flying.
Yeah.
People miss that,
Yeah.
man. People miss that. It's a part of wrestling that's not there. It's just like tag teams, for example. That's not an intricate part of wrestling
That
anymore.
era's gone.
Yeah.
Because, but when Ringling Brothers goes, they have the elephant and the cannon being shot out. I think they
Yeah.
take an element out of it that needs to be put back in
Yeah,
it.
I agree.
Vince Senior always had tag teams. Junior, he put the tag teams together.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's great to be here, Stephen. Thank
Thank
you
you,
very
Luke.
much,
Thank you,
mate.
Bobby.
Brad Kane, it's good to
Brad
be here
Kane,
again
yes,
after all
that's
these
right.
years, brother.
All right.
And a whoa!
Steve Corino.